Okay. Morning, council, staff, guests. Nice to see everyone this morning. I'm just doing a head count to see if we have all of council. And we do. I'm happy to call the meeting to order and confirm that we have everyone present. And hang on, we're into screen sharing a little bit early here. Okay. All right, let's get through the opening stuff here before we get into the delegations. Councillor Thompson, would you kindly do the honors of reading the land acknowledgement statement?
I certainly would. Just give me a second here to bring it all up on my screen. And it seems, sorry about this. Everything seems to be getting in the way here.
Okay.
I've got the agenda up on my screen, Your Worship, but you're all getting in the way of me getting to the top of the agenda here, where that is. So give me a second or so.
We will do that.
Sorry, this short meeting is just all of a sudden got a lot longer, didn't it? Didn't it, Mayor Terziano?
That's okay. It's not a race.
Good thing I'd be dead last in it, wouldn't I? Okay, here we go. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take actions toward real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And with that, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Wiebe, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It is recommended that the General Committee meeting agenda dated Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 be adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? That carries. Do we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none, we have no invited presentations, but we have some deputations today. And the first one, we will welcome Bob Vincent and Gwen Heyman for a dock approval request at Hunters Bay Drive. And who's with us? It looks like you're both with us. Welcome. The
Morning.
floor is yours.
Good morning.
Hello, my name is Bob Vincent. Me and my wife, Gwen Heyman, are marathon canoe coaches with the Ontario Canoe Racing Association. We were looking for a home in Huntsville because of clean water. We had two real estate brokers show us homes on Hunter Bay Drive. They both said there was public water access for homes not on the water. They provided a map showing their location. We purchased the home on 176 Hunters Bay Drive and moved in December 2019. We teach marathon canoe lessons in the month of June on Tuesday nights from 5:30 to 7:30, free of charge. There have been several canoe races in Huntsville, so there is a strong interest from local paddlers. We have had as many as 8 teams out and as few as 2 teams out for the practice. We use Goodwin Park as there is a good dock there for launching canoes. In the month of July, we have paddle nights on Tuesday nights again from Goodwin Park and paddle down to Mary Lake and back. This is a practice night and a fun paddle, a place to use your skills for racing and for other canoes. We used the right-of-way on Hunters Bay Drive as early as March when the ice went out. The right-of-way had not been maintained and was not very user-friendly. We had to wear boots as there was no place safe to put the canoes in the water without getting your feet wet or slipping off the logs. Not knowing who to talk to about the problem, we, Gwen sent an email to the town of council, to the town of Huntsville on June 9th, 2020. We asked who was responsible for the upkeep of the right-of-way. We had an automated response to confirm the email. A week later, the lawn was cut. Nothing was done to make the entry into the water safer. I talked with neighbors about a landing or a dock. They said there was one there about 20 years ago. With the entry into the water not safe, so not many people used it. So with the help from friends, we built a small landing to get to the water safer. It is made from 2x10s and 2x6s on top, pressure treated, sturdy and well anchored into the log provided by the town. In 2021, May 31st, in the Doppler was a picture of the landing. The town was to take action against all under-registered docks or landings. I called the clerk's office and asked about it. She said I should talk to the director of operations, Steve Herman. I called him and he asked if this was a private dock or a public dock. I said it was on public property and was considered a public dock as it was on the right of way. He said someone would have to do a presentation for it to stay. I said I would do that. He said it was well constructed and not a hazard to the public. Since the dock was constructed, there has been renewed interest in the right of way. People come down, sit on it, drink their morning coffee. Canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards have used it. I have supplied pictures and left them at your office. Steve had mentioned this right-of-way on the water was one of the best the town has. It is straight down from the road and a gentle slope to the water. It is easy access for people who have mobility issues. Please consider leaving the dock or landing there or making it larger. With thanks from the 78 homes without water access from the subdivision around Hunters Bay. Now, we have a signed petition. 67 people signed it, of which there are 4 that live on the water, and they were in favor of the dock staying. I have left a copy of that with the office, and we ask for your blessing, and we ask you to leave the dock there. Any questions?
Thanks, Bob. I will open it up to council for questions, and we will be dealing with the request under new business towards the end of the meeting. But for now, council, any questions? Councillor Wiebe.
Thank you, Worship, and thanks for the presentation. Could you tell me how deep the water is there? What's happening below the surface?
From the log that the town has provided, it is approximately 2.5 feet deep. And if you walk out into the bay, when you're approximately 10 feet out into the water, it becomes, I'm going to say 5 to 6 feet deep.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. And yes, I have seen the dock, and I've seen the access point and so on and so forth, and it looks good to me. I just wish, I guess, that the dock was a little bit more substantial. Not that the one that's there is not safe, but I'd like to see a larger dock, I think. If people in the area are going to be utilizing the dock and wanted to take down chairs and so on and so forth to sit there, it would definitely have to be a bigger structure. But as it is now, I'm all in favor of what these folks have done, and I congratulate them on taking the initiative and utilizing that right of way. So that's all I have to say. I just wish it was a little bit bigger so that the people there could, more people could probably utilize the dock. But thanks.
Okay. I have a question possibly for Colleen or Steve, actually, and looking at the map, we have the end of the road allowance going to water, and then we have 167 Hunters Bay, which I assume is where the dock is now. Can somebody clarify or confirm that the dock's actually at 167, and is there anything at the end of the road allowance?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, the dock is at 167. It was part of a drainage course. There's still a drainage pipe in the area. The road allowance that you're looking at also on the map is town property. It certainly isn't as gentle slope down that this one is. This one is a much better location, but you're correct. The town owns 2 pieces of land there, 167 and at the end of the road allowance just down the road a little bit further. But this is the one that the residents in the community seem to be using.
And thanks, Steve, for that. Do we maintain both areas, or is there anything to maintain at the end of the road allowance, such as grass or anything?
There's nothing to maintain at the end of the road allowance. And what we've noticed down where Bob has the dock now is the community seems to have taken that over. I was there a few weeks ago. They've cleaned the whole area up. They're cutting the grass. It's being maintained, but not by park staff at this present time.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, Bob, Gwen, thank you for that presentation. And as I said, we'll deal with it at the end, and council's very supportive of public access to the water. So
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
So someone will notify you of the outcome if you don't have to stay around.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, council, our second deputation is another doc, Debbie Holtby and Evan Turner. Are you with us? I see Debbie.
We're just getting the connections here. Can you hear us?
We can hear you. We can't see you.
That's good. Just a minute. Okay. Yep. Sorry. Technical, just working out the technical things.
That's okay.
Where's the first one here, right? 1, 2, 3.
First of all, I would like, just while Debbie is getting our pictures here, I would like to thank the committee for allowing us to speak to you. There we go. Can you see that?
We have your screen sharing on now, yes.
Awesome, perfect, alrighty. So I'd like to thank the committee for allowing us to speak to you about our concerns. My name is Evan Turner, and I'm here with my friend and neighbor, Debbie Holtby. We live on Vernon Shores, which is a growing community on a peninsula tucked into the western corner of Lake Vernon. And today we are asking council to consider options for provision of continued access to the lake for those of us who live across the road from it, not unlike Bob's presentation. The 2 accesses and docks which are presently being used by the committee are in danger of being lost. For those of you who are not aware of the history of Vernon Shores, it was initially developed in the 1960s. As a place with cottages and things. And according to former Mayor Len Clark, the original plans for this area included provision for 3 lakeside locks, which were intended to provide access for off-lake residents. And as was not unusual in those days, unfortunately, this was only solidified with a gentleman's handshake. It wasn't actually ever documented. But as a result of this, the historically access provision for this area has been 2 docks on 2 separate of these lots. And those have been in place for in excess of 30 years. These have been maintained by community members such as ourselves. And with regard to the 13 East Court lot, which is and road allowance, which is the one we are talking about, that dock has been predominantly maintained by today's presenters. Every year we would, in the spring, put it in, and after decades of patching, it became apparent in 2019 that the old dock needed to be replaced, which was done by using environmentally friendly billets to replace the old styrofoam. And as a result of that, we now have a new 10 by 20 foot dock in place. There is a rudimentary path and set of stairs that we have maintained, We've deliberately left them primitive in respect of the fact that we are aware the town does not like people doing a lot of fiddling with land which is theirs, and also to allow us to maintain the natural environment as much as possible. We have always maintained ongoing respect for lakeside neighbors on each side. We've done this by practicing minimizing the amount of noise. Of course, we always have excited playing children and those things on and off throughout the summer, so that noise is a little hard to keep down. But I think the most important thing for us to emphasize is how important a role this space plays in our neighborhood. This is not just about our two families. Throughout the summer, this spot is consistently a gathering spot for families, and it helps to promote the strong sense of community that we've come to enjoy out here on Vernon Shores. And that is a very real thing here. Laughter and joyful sounds of children playing in the water is as fulfilling to seniors such as myself sitting on the dock as it is to their parents. In August 2018, the town initiated communication with us with the goal of dealing with concerns they had related to standardizing properties such as these in terms of liability and compliance with bylaws. And that is in fact what led to today's presentation. During that time, we had numerous in-person meetings with town, email communications, phone calls, roadside chats, and dock visits with the town staff. And I emphasize that the staff have always been very approachable. They've always listened to our concerns and where appropriate have offered us advice. This year, Steve Vernon's presentation, which was adopted at the May 25th council meeting, provided clarification for us of what options we might have related to continuing the community access to Lake Vernon. When we look back to the 1980s, when we first moved here as permanent residents, there were very few others who lived here on the peninsula, but that has changed. Many more people are choosing to live here year-round. I think this has been driven by lifestyle choices in a combination with the real estate boom, which is pretty active at the moment. But at the end of the day, access to Lake Vernon has always driven real estate sales in the area. It was one of the main reasons we chose to live here as far back as the 1980s. For the offside people here, this access has always been provided by the two town lots, with docks that were built and maintained by locals, but are often used by many others in the general public. And we do notice recently that there's been a noticeable increase in this as a result of private cottage rentals and Airbnbs in the area. And ads for both real estate and rental for the area, of which I've picked a few, boast amenities such as, quote, just a short walk to Lake Vernon, quote, public access to Lake Vernon located close by, and public access to Lake Vernon just a few minutes down the road for swimming and or boating, to highlight only a couple. And some of these are not even rentals that are on Vernon Shores. They're considerably further away. And all of this has created a lot more traffic on the docks there. From our perspective, sadly, the town has decided that we no longer continue as we have in the past. Having said this, we do recognize and respect the need to make improvements moving forward as more and more people come to enjoy the lake. So in view of this, we're requesting that the town explore options for maintaining continued access to the lake in a manner that addresses their concerns, while at the same time continuing to satisfy the needs of the local community. The issue of safe access, shoreline improvement, and inclusion of a dock or docks of sufficient size are important elements of the decision. As you make your decision related to this, we request that you consider the following elements which we have noted in the Town of Huntsville strategic plan, and consider them in your decision. One, the The plan calls for promotion of healthy, active living in Huntsville and providing programs with opportunities for recreation for all. Also create partnership with community groups and develop and implement plans. And then lastly, provide access to water amenities, including expansion dock and beach areas. Should council agree to go forward with this, we really do look forward to working collaboratively with town staff to create a space here that accomplishes all of this. A space that we believe the town of Huntsville can be truly proud of. That's my presentation.
Thanks for that. First off, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done over the years to maintain a dock there and for it to be used by the public. And it's a beautiful replacement dock according to the pictures. I think there'll be some questions from council. And I see first Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Evan, for the presentation. I, for one, absolutely am supportive of, as the mayor said in the last presentation, of continued access and in fact, increased access to our waterfront. So kudos, I won't repeat, but kudos to you and the community for maintaining the docks. I do have a question, though, and that is, my understanding, so Vernon Shores is a private condominium community, is it? I think.
No.
No, it's not. It's just
No,
a regular.
Yes,
Okay.
that's Northern Shore. It's just down the road a little ways.
Okay, so my
Yeah.
confusion. All right. And
Yeah.
so that's the reason why you have two municipal lots within. Right.
Yes.
Okay, that answers that. And I just want to say I'm very supportive of your request.
Thank you.
We're glad to hear that.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you through you, Your Worship. And yes, so and maybe Steve can clarify this. I know there is 3 lots available. 2 are together and 1 is separate with access to Lake Vernon.
Is that for us?
Director Hernan?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, we actually own about 6 lots out there in the Lake Vernon area. There's the road allowance beside where Mr. Evans is talking about right now, with a lot beside it. Down the road further, we have 2 lots, and then around the bend, and I can pull up the map, we have 3 more lots. So there's a fair bit of property out there right now owned by the town.
Thank you, Steve. So yeah, no, I mean, I really like this presentation. Thank you, Evan. And I guess what I'm happy to hear with both is that it isn't just access for people in that direct community.
No.
That you are open to people coming from, all over Huntsville to be able to enjoy access to the water, because I think that is beneficial for everyone.
We have always considered it to be public, even though we put it there.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Actually, hey, Evan, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Dan. How are you?
Good, man. Just curious, is it signed at all? Do you have any signs posted for
We
being
do not.
doing like that? It just, okay, thanks. Good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I said to the last presenters, we do have it on our agenda under new business towards the end, and we'll make a decision and we'll notify you. You don't have to hang around unless you want to. I just want to, I guess I just want to reiterate that our new policy is to ensure that we have the proper insurance coverages and safety, not that we are trying to decrease access to the water by any means. So I think you'll find council very supportive.
We were initially concerned, and then since then, in talking with staff and everybody, have come to realize that this is more about consolidating and solidifying the ones that are possible, and we understand that.
Yeah, and I thank you for suggesting we go forward collaboratively. That's great.
Thank you.
You guys have done it all on your own so far, it looks like, so it'll be nice if we can go forward in a partnership. Thanks for being here today.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Okay. All right, council, we have one more deputation, and that is our own Chamber of Commerce, Paul Evans and Kelly Haywood.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, here we are. Hello.
There's Kelly.
Paul Evans is joining me in this deputation as well. If yeah, thank you. Thank you. So good morning and thanks for having us. We're here today to request support for outdoor skating. We're working with partner organizations like the Huntsville Rotary Club and a group of dedicated volunteers. We have submitted 2 separate grant applications to the federal government. And once the writ is lifted, we're hopeful to hear more regarding their financial support. And I'll speak more about the grants further in our presentation. I would like to introduce Paul Evans and thank him very much for assisting us in this endeavor. He's worked very hard and he's going to give you a bit of an overview on the project.
Good morning, all.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you for listening to us. Appreciate it. Are you going ahead, Kelly? Or
nope, you're up.
Okay. Lions Lookout has been identified by our group as the ideal location to highlight our rugged, beautiful landscape. As we know, Lions Lookout has always been a popular sport event facility in the winter and summer. And I represent a large group of individuals from all age demographic who are excited about creating an outdoor multi-sport facility. As Kelly enlightened you to, I mean, we've been diligently trying to work to secure funding for a multi-sport facility up there, but unfortunately, the current election ongoing, this has been put on hold. So for this, the interest of this meeting, we want to just discuss creating a pad up there using a liner and simple boards to facilitate a skating experience. Huntsville, as you know, is one of the few small communities that doesn't have an outdoor facility. In fact, last night, while I was having a beer at Canvas, a few young men in their 20s who I coached hockey several years ago came up to me, and during conversation, I mentioned, what's your thoughts about a full outdoor ice skating facility? And they were totally excited. And I said, well, what do you do now? And they said, well, we go up to Novar. And I had no idea Novar had an outdoor facility. And they said, we go up there quite often in the winter, and there's lots of Huntsville, ex-players and what have you that go and play shinny. They said there's shovels up there. It's community maintained from what I gathered, but they said they leave their shovels left up there. They'll shovel the ice rink off. They'll share it with other skaters. So, they've indicated, the fact that there's a small little hut there that they change in. It's not heated at all. And so again, they're experiencing that outdoor quintessential experience of hockey. On a more personal note, there's nothing more magical than skating on an outdoor rink. I mean, I grew up in a small town, Richmond Hill, where we skated on a pond. We used to go out there in the morning. We were out there for 6 or 7 hours. Our skates were frozen solid, but those are the memories that stick with me and many other of our group. And so there's definitely a huge interest in creating this outdoor space. On a more economic level, having been an owner of Hidden Valley for several years, we experienced the incredible popularity of Arrowhead Park and its skating facility. As you're well aware, it's packed on Friday and Saturday nights with their tiki torch. And in terms of the spin-off economically, our hotel was packed between the ski hill and the skating loop. It was packed. So, I think for all intents and purposes, it brings people to town. They spend money. It's great for the town. There's certainly room for more than one ice surface. And that has certainly come out during our group discussions. and on a more human level, John Cowan, we've been working with John Cowan, who's very involved in sport. He forwarded me a study, which has come out of the States called Project Play, in which they assess the impacts of COVID on sport and what going forward, what the implications would be in it. And it's a shocking fact to find out that the incidence of obesity has escalated to epidemic proportions amongst youth. We need to get youth and adults out skating. I mean, it's a given. We tried to resurrect Can Lake last year, but obviously with the advent of COVID, it wasn't possible. I mean, last year was a perfect year. There was no January thaw, and people were constantly phoning me saying, let's do something with Can Lake. And I said, well, we're tied at this point with COVID. So, I mean, there's nothing better than, for physical and mental health to get kids out. I don't know whether we're going to pry them away from their video screens, but let's try. I mean, as I say, it's a quintessential Canadian experience to be skating on a rink. And in fact, when we owned Hidden Valley, it was amazing to see the number of new Canadians that were coming up and skating on that Arrowhead Loop and wanting to experience skating. It was heartwarming to see how many new Canadians are embracing our winter. And we need to embrace and celebrate the fact that Huntsville has always been a sports destination to play in. John said to me yesterday, who's a great wealth of sports knowledge, he said, we used to have 6 ski hills here, and the train used to bring people up to Huntsville. And we've always been a sports town and a winter destination. And I'd like to see that, escalated with a permanent, not only a permanent rink, but let's try and resurrect Can Lake and try and learn from, what we can do and what we can't do. We've been working with the town staff, and they've been great in, addressing different issues that are going to arise, such as water, hydro, but I think none of these are insurmountable. And Kelly will speak to, our ability to get funding for, various aspects of this, such as the hydro. I know there's funding for that specifically. But yeah, let's, moving forward, I just want to make sure that we create this vision of a beautiful, sports pad up there to be used for lacrosse, ball hockey, basketball, outdoor shinny. It'd be an amazing facility. And I think it would draw people into this town exponentially. Brian Crozier has been a wealth of knowledge to us as well. He's an old hockey bug, and he knows how to build rinks. We know how to build rinks. Adrian Muster, who built rinks on Hunters Bay, is right on board. So there's a vast group of young as well as old farts like us that want to make this happen. And there's a passion alive in this town to do this. And I think, Kelly will expound on the chamber support. And I'm also a member of Rotary, which Rotary is giving its full support to whatever initiative we undertake this year, whether it be the Lions Lookout or the Can Lake option. So yeah, moving forward, I just hope we can, create this paradise up there. It'd be wonderful to see, such as every, second Friday or Saturday, get some lights from Sunbelt. I've already approached Sunbelt. They're willing to donate lights as long as we put the fuel in it, and have an evening skate up at either Can or Lions Lookout. It'd be wonderful for people coming up to Toronto as well as locals. So let's get people out, adults and kids. I'll pass it on to Kelly at this point.
Thanks, Paul. Paul, I appreciate your enthusiasm and your passion. I'm going to talk a little bit about, the Huntsville Accommodation Tax Association commissioned a study and surveyed over 900 Ontario residents who were somewhat or had traveled to Huntsville in the past, it was identified that Huntsville is far less known as a winter destination, with only 9% of Ontario residents looking to travel to this region. Anyway, the study continues to expand on the fact that they're looking at destinations such as Collingwood, Blue Mountain, and Niagara. As you know, the Chamber of Commerce with Huntsville Tourism in general has made great efforts to focus on shoulder season events and activities over the year, and has directed great emphasis on winter development. And I think we are certainly have a unique opportunity to take advantage of a number of grant opportunities to augment these efforts, as well as take advantage, ideally, of the enthusiasm from the community. There's been surveys. We have a lot of people that we're working with in terms of volunteers and partner organizations. So what we're talking about, as Paul has alluded to, is a skating rink at Lions Lookout Field. And potentially, if council is amenable, to consider us opening and maintaining Can Lake as well. So I'll talk about that a little bit more, but I know we need to wrap up. So I mentioned that we have applied for 2 grants. One is the Community Revitalization Fund, and that's for $168,750. Now that is the one that Paul's referring to, a permanent structure in the future that we'd love to see at Lions Lookout Field. But this year, we're proposing to just have a temporary sort of backyard skating rink, if you will, with a liner and a border around it. It's a Olympic size rink, and very specifically, it's 20,000 square feet at Lions Lookout Park. That would include the wooden frame and a rink liner, and it would enable our groups, along with the town of Huntsville, to analyze the usage, potential parking concerns. We've worked very closely with staff, and I think it's a good opportunity to sort of give it a trial run. We're asking that the town of Huntsville maintain the skating rink that's temporary at Lions Lookout Park, and would enable rink flooding in the winter by extending a 2-inch water supply pipe to install necessary backflow prevention valves. We've worked with Director Hernan on the water, and I know Paul and Steve have worked very closely on this one as well. So the water supply is part of our request. And then we're also asking that a group of community citizens would work with a town of Huntsville representative to open Can Lake as an outdoor skating facility this winter, maintained solely by volunteers, but we recognize the impact on your insurance and liability. And we would also request that in the future, you will welcome us back to discuss the potential construction of a multi-sport year-round game court designed for basketball or lacrosse in the summer, skating and hockey at Lions Lookout Park in the future. I think that's all the time we have, and I appreciate you listening to us today.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Paul. I'm going to open it up to council for any questions. Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for that presentation. I think this is a great idea. I was just wondering, and maybe Councillor Stone can answer this, is the BIA contemplating putting the rink back in Rivermill Park? As was mentioned by the presenters, I mean, I'm all in favor of as many rinks as we can get going. Certainly Can Lake, I think, if the weather isn't bad, is a good possibility as well. But yeah, this is a great idea. Hopefully funding will help out, but I think we need to do this anyway. But wondering about that Rivermill Park rink.
Councillor.
Yes, the BIA would like to do that, but they just can't make it very big at all simply because of the grades on the grass there. So it really would be for the very young, and you couldn't really have a shinny game there at all. I know that the BIA would wholly embrace doing a temporary one up at Lions Lookout. And for myself personally, I love that we're doing this a temporary one this year. And I'm skeptical as to whether we should do something permanent over the grass up there. But nonetheless, I think this is a great first step, and let's see how it goes. I know it would just be magic up there skating at night.
Councillor Armour, you are next.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, just more of a comment than anything else. I can remember a few moons ago when I grew up in Huntsville, when there used to be an outdoor rink at the Huntsville Public School in the lower parking lot. And then in the late 80s, when I moved up here in Brunel Road, I had, and being a volunteer firefighter, I got to work with Ross Payne and many other volunteer firefighters as we maintained the Brunel rink down below that is now the Montessori School. I know many children learned actually how to skate, play hockey there, that went on to play rep hockey. And so I think it's a great idea. And I really look forward to seeing what the town can bring forward or for us to look at and pricing. And yeah, thanks for the presentation. Great job.
Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. Paul, thanks for your enthusiasm, and Kelly, all your efforts for this. I've been in discussions with Director Hernan for a long time to try and get water and power up to Lions Lookout. I feel that that's a venue that's overlooked. So I don't know when it comes to budget if we're going to have room to do something up there, but I love the idea and fully support it. Can Lake is one of those things, weather dependent, but fully agree with all the comments that are said. And if we can get as many facilities as possible set up for people to come and enjoy here, I'm all for it. So thanks to both of you.
And Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I too really embrace this idea, this concept. The question I have is for Director Hernan with regards to if we were to go ahead with the temporary facility this year, what are the options for getting water up there to maintain a flooded rink? And I guess that would be directed then to Director Hernan. Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Trusiano. So we did work with the district of Muskoka, and we have found a solution to the water. There was a pipe buried under the tracks when that whole redevelopment of the Summit Center was done, if you will. So we have got a water line up there now. It ends just, I guess it'd be just west of the road, if you will. So for about $15,000, the water line could be extended. The only problem we have, and we have talked to the district about it, is it's not buried very deep. So we'd have to put in some frost protection, some blow-off valves, and we basically have to run the water throughout the winter months, trickling it out so it doesn't freeze. But we've had that discussion with the district. They don't have any concerns with it for community use up there. So water can be extended, and the cost on extending the water is about $15,000.
Okay, well, Councillor Weed. Councillor, you're on mute.
There we go. I was just wondering if we were able to do a temporary space up there for use, would we be able to provide parking up by the field, or would we have to walk up? What were the thoughts on that?
I mean, we definitely discussed that as a team with town staff, and recognize that may be a concern. Although at this point we're looking at parking near the Veterans Memorial as well as by the Active Living Center. I think there was some discussion about could there actually be parking on Lions Lookout Field? I don't know that that's something we'd want to look at right away. I think first we just want to see if we can make it work in the first year. Are people willing to just walk up that little hill? There's a path as well that we can maybe keep maintained from the road, and then see how it goes and reassess for next year.
I think there's definitely a pretty permanent gate system in there to keep vehicles out of going up there.
Right.
So I would think it would be a walk up, at least from Veterans Memorial there. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. So the goal is one right now, temporary, and see how it goes, and then possibly two? Is that what Paul was saying at this point?
I mean, so there's a number of variables, you know, with the grants that we've applied for. I think for this year, the goal would be a temporary rink at Lions Lookout Park, you know, that's maintained by the municipality. But also we'd like to also try to revive Can Lake at the same time, that we would, you know, maintain entirely ourselves with volunteers and sort of like what Paul was suggesting. I think there's more than enough interest for outdoor skating, and to Councillor Withey's question around downtown skating, I personally would advocate very much to have that rink there as well. Even it pulls a different demographic. It tends to be toddlers. It's a beautiful thing to have downtown. So you know, the more we can promote this community as a winter destination, the better. So and we have a fair amount that we've already received from the provincial and federal government for funding for winter marketing. So we'll be placing a great deal of emphasis on it.
No, I definitely agree, Kelly. I mean, looking at being in the Port Sydney area, the Lions Club, kudos to Councillor Fitzgerald and that group that keep that going, and the fire department down there that keep the one at Port Sydney. And then again, they also tried on the lake as well. And I mean, we had limitations with COVID obviously this year, but I know there's definitely a use even in the area down there for people to come.
If I could add, during our discussions about this outdoor rink, permanent structure, it always came back that, well, what about Can Lake? And there's a huge advocacy from a lot of people for Can Lake. I guess, you know, it's a different experience up at Can Lake as it is on Lions Lookout. I'd like to also mention that I'm involved in organizing this Rotary Alumni Hockey Tournament in February. And we're hoping to get Carlton the Bear up there on the Friday night. And, you know, I have a free skate with kids and a few of the NHLers on Can Lake. But if Can Lake doesn't work, it'd be great to do it up at Lions Lookout too. So, you know, Rotary's right on board with this, with Can Lake, no expenditure to the town. We've already got a shipping container donated to house, you know, whatever equipment we need. So people are really excited about doing Can Lake as well. I know, you know, the weather's an issue, but hey, even if we get 2 weeks out of it, let's experiment with it and see how it goes. Let's do a post-mortem on what happens with Can Lake and see if we can make it work. If not, it's nothing lost.
Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Kelly and Paul. A fantastic presentation. Of course, incredibly supportive of the proposal, whichever way it goes. I do have a quick question. Kelly, you made reference to grant applications, and I wondered if you had any sense of the timing, the turnaround on that. I know you never know, but if even ballpark, and that's my question.
Thank you. So both grants are federal, and because of the election, they've been put on hold. So we won't know until at least, you know, late September. I think we were right in queue. So particularly the one that for $168,000 was a vision that, you know, that was the one that created the permanent structure. And, you know, obviously there'll be lots of discussions about that, but we had to get it in and get it started. So, you know, I certainly hope that it'll be before winter, but if it isn't, it's something that we can build upon for next year or start in the spring. There's, you know, because the facility is specifically, you know, a multi-sport facility, I think there's lots of opportunity there. The other one is the Healthy Communities Initiative. That one was for $48,000. I mean, I don't want to jinx myself by saying I'm less likely. I think that one was extremely oversubscribed at the last intake, so it's hard to say. There is another grant that I've shared with town staff, the Community Building Fund, and this is one that the municipality would have to submit. We're happy to write the grant. and take on, you know, whatever we can do or support. But this would be an incredible capital stream for hydro up at Lions Lookout Field, any kind of capital, and it's I believe 100% or very close to it. So there's good opportunities for sure.
I would also
Thank you
like
for that. And thank you for all of the grant writing. I know all of the work that goes into that.
Thank
so.
you.
I would also like to add that this alumni tournament, we're hoping to raise $35,000 to $50,000 to go towards this sports complex.
Right. Thank you, Bob.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Worship. When Paul was speaking about his youth, I was thinking about mine, and I don't know if this is maybe something that you can't do anymore, but when I was a kid, I learned to skate on a flooded tennis court. That seemed to provide a really, you know, obviously very flat, hard surface. Little boards went up around. The fathers in the community would go out in the evening and flood it. I'm sure I'm going to hear that you're not allowed to do that because it'll ruin it. But that's that I don't know if that's an opportunity as well, because those tennis courts are sitting idle all winter. Maybe there's a way to put a big sheet of plastic down before you put water on it that will protect the surface. But those there's lots of those around that could be utilized as well. Just a thought.
Okay, let's stick with the request that we have before us, and I just want to recap so that when we talk about this at the end of the meeting, we're actually talking about the right thing. So if I might, Kelly, the ask is for a temporary rink this year up at Lions Lookout, that the town would be responsible for getting water to and would be responsible for maintaining throughout the course of the winter, including snow removal and flooding. That there are volunteers that are going to help erect that temporary field though. And then the second ask is for a group of volunteers to try to resurrect Can Lake. And from a town perspective, we might be weighing in on what the insurance requirements might be. Am I summarizing the ask today all right? So that,
yes.
So that when we get to it, we know exactly what we're talking about?
Yes, that's exactly it.
And permanent structure we'll talk about
in the future.
Yes, next round. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here today and for everything you guys do for the community.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, council, that brings us to the end of our presentations into new business. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Withey and seconded by Councillor Wiebe. It is recommended that the committee approve the 2021 Q2 budget deviations as outlined in Appendix B of Report Corp 2021-59. Julia, are you going to highlight our deviations for us?
I certainly will. So first of all, I just want to note a couple of things with respect to the forecast. The 2020 June year-to-date actuals in Appendix A as on the report represent the actuals to the end of June, so it doesn't go beyond that, just so that you're aware of that. The forecast is also based on staff's estimate at a point in time. So when the forecast was first presented or prepared by staff, it was anticipated that the province would be moving out of stage 3 of the roadmap to reopen Ontario in a short amount of time. However, that has changed. On August 17th, the province announced that Ontario would be pausing the exit from the roadmap to reopen, and it would not be moving into stage 4 at this time. So the result was that staff did go back and revise the forecast to reflect this, this change. So in the event that we are able to move over to stage 4, you know, whatever time that may be, it is expected that the forecast may change if those programs are able to run. So the forecast, which is included in Appendix A of the report, does show an estimated operating surplus of approximately $310,000. And as you'll see in the summary of each division and department, you'll see that the majority of that is in community services, and that is because of the fact there has been vacancies and programs have not been able to run. And staff have been working at mitigating those the impacts of those lost revenues in there. So also included in Appendix C to the report is a summary of the Q2 forecast capital project spending, which indicates that approximately 550 more spending is expected to occur than originally budgeted. This doesn't have an impact on the 2021 net levy impact. The additional spending is a result of a number of proposed new capital projects in the roads department, which you'll see later on in the report or in the agenda. And an increased scope of work to the Port Sydney Beach Rehabilitation Project, which was funded through the Inclusive Community Grant for $60,000. The new capital projects in the road department are largely due to emergency road work needed as a result of the significant rainfall. There were also additional projects as a result of receiving additional grant funds. So the specific projects have been listed in that deviation report. There are also savings to other capital projects will offset these additional costs as well. So this was, for example, the steamer, which was originally budgeted for $20,000, but the actual costs were $17,000. The Freightliner purchase came in under budget by about $7,500. The MHP train station roof has also been deferred to 2022, which reduces the capital spending by another $20,000. The Capital Chambers furniture purchase, $16,000, has been put on hold until the Town Hall Working Group has provided further direction. There was also some substantial savings in the facilities capital projects, including $17,000 of savings in the Stevenson Hall roof projects and $23,000 in the Motivations space flooring project. So a summary of the budget deviations included in the Q2 forecast have been provided in Appendix B. These show the forecasted deviations from the originally approved 2021 budget. There are two new columns in the deviation sheet, one showing the difference from the previously reported deviation and one providing an explanation for the change. So we'll go through all those deviations now, and I can put that up on my screen. I also just want to note that the first line on page 103 regarding the deviation for the Algonquin Theatre should be removed. It should have been removed when we made those changes, so that's just an omission that we need to make. I'll just go through, so let me share my screen just so everyone can see it. So can you see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the first is a new deviation. It's the sale of the road allowance. So this is based on the year-to-date sales of $48,000, and these revenues are transferred into the Parks Capital Reserve as per our policy. The next two, there is no change since the last quarterly report. The next one is the investment income. So this is the $32,000, and that's additional income, that investment income that we've earned based on the prudent investment program. And the majority is transferred to reserves. So if you recall, we do have a policy that transfers those funds over to certain capital reserves. The next is the COVID funding. And again, there's no change in that. The assessment center grant funding. So this is funding that we do receive from the province to run the assessment center. So we do get a set amount for that each week. These funds, we are showing a big surplus here. However, there are a lot of expenses that are drawn down from that. There's the facility costs, there's some staffing costs, some nursing costs, that sort of thing. And it also does not include staff resources that are utilized but not allocated directly to there. So such as marketing, customer services, finance, that sort of thing. The next one down is financials. This is still the COVID assessment center. So this is increase in SWB costs. The next one is tax write-off. So this is one significant claim that we just have been made aware of, and it goes back 5 years. So that's why that amount is so significant. So that will be hitting our books in 2021. The next one down is just various revenues in community services. So this is an increase in estimated lost revenue. And this isn't just from one area. So this is over several areas. And mainly as a result due to COVID because of programming's not being able to run. And it also, you'll see down below that there is some significant savings in the salaries, wages, and benefits that do offset these amounts. So the next one down is the various SWB. So we have a reduction of SWB of $262,000 expected.
Julia, can you scroll your screen? We can't see this anymore now. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the next one down is facilities. So we have had some vacancies in facilities. And also we have had some, we have $160,000 here of savings in the facilities SWB line, but just to note, there is some increased custodial costs for a contract because we have been having to use a contracted service for that rather than doing that internally at the beginning of the year. The next one is hydro. So we're expecting a further reduction in hydro, and that's because of just programs not being able to run of about 47,900. The next one is floor minor lacrosse. So this is a new change from Q1. So it's expected that this is to go down even further by about $26,000. The next two, the ice minor hockey and the ice revenues, these are both reported at Q1, so there's no change to that. Down below, we have rentals, skating, instructional courses, and registration fees. So those three lines, which are fairly significant that we are not anticipating based on the fact that we are in stage 3 still. So again, if we move to stage 4 more quickly than we anticipate, those could change. So again, this top line here, please omit that line. The next one here, the Streetscape Coordinator. So this was just a change between where it was located. So again, that was reported in Q1. The next one is the rezoning fee. So it's expected to have a further reduction in revenues due to fewer applications being received than originally anticipated in the budget in Q1. So that's a $27,650. The next one is planning. So this is an increase in planning SWB, and this is due to an extension of the administrative position, new planning technician contract position, and extension of the GIS technician. So those were reported a few months ago by the manager of planning. And it didn't amount to be as much as we had anticipated, and that was because of some further vacancies. So the vacancies were longer than we had anticipated. So it's less than what we had noted in the report. We've had additional LPAT fees, LPAT legal fees of about $38,000, and those are funded through the reserve. Again, here's the Streetscape, and that was just where that position was budgeted and where it ended up being charged to. The next one is a similar one. So this was winter control hours, and this was just a reallocation between the Parks Department and the Roads Department on where those hours were charged. So you'll see at the very bottom of this page, there's an offset to that. There's several capital projects listed below here, and I won't get into the detail of those because they'll be in a report further along with Kevin Bocock. So I'm just going to go to the next page. So the last page, we have registration fees for the Regional Fire Training Center. And those, so with that program, any surplus will be transferred to that reserve so we can keep that program self-funded. So there's $68,000 in extra revenue, but that is offset by around $48,000 of expenses for SWB. And the last one is the library. So there was one position that was removed from the budget, which was added back in. So right now that's being funded through the library reserve and to ensure that their funding sources get kept whole. They only have a certain amount of funding. So that brings us to a total of about 213 budget deviations or total budget deviations. And that the remaining amounts are all the minor ones that are under the $25,000. So if you do go through the FMW report, you will see all the adjustments through, or all the changes through there that make that up. But these are all the significant budget deviations that are in the report. And so I'm available to ask any or answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, I'll get you to stop sharing the screen so I can see council. And there we go. And are there questions from council? Not seeing any hands. I actually have one. Julia, the $105,000 tax write-off. we generally budget something every year for tax write-offs. And this one is quite a surprise, and there's no room within the tax write-off budgeted number to deal with that, or?
Yeah, so that's correct. So we usually do budget, for write-offs. Last year during the budget process, we actually reduced the amount because we have been seeing lower write-offs in the past few years. So we have been lowering it. This one is a surprise, and it's above what we anticipate to be our regular write-offs. So we are anticipating that it will be on top of what the write-offs are that we do receive. But we'll know later on, closer to the probably in Q3, closer on to where we sit with that.
Right. And one other question I had, so with not moving into stage 4, are our directors in the various departments comfortable that they'll be able to mitigate the lost revenues towards through the rest of the year by offsetting expenses, or?
I think when you look at where they're at now, right now for community services, they are showing a surplus, and so they are mitigating those expenses or those lost revenues. So when they see the lost revenues, they're adjusting their program so they're not bringing the staff back for those, that sort of thing. I think you'll see some of the biggest reductions are in aquatics and in facilities as well.
Yeah. And I guess has our safe restart money been factored into that surplus that you're projecting right now?
There's two kind of COVID funding money. So that we did budget for the $661,000 in the 2020 budget. So that is included as part of our revenues to offset some of those expenses. So that is included there right now still. There was an additional $423,000, and that's still sitting in a reserve. So that has not been used for 2021.
Okay, so just so that I understand, if we hadn't budgeted the 600,000, we would actually be looking at a deficit of 300,000 right now.
So if we took the 600,000 and put it into a reserve instead for next year, then yeah, it would flip it the other way.
Okay. I don't see any other hands, so I will call a question. All in favor? And that carries. And have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Withey. It is recommended that committee direct staff to prepare the town consolidated 2022 draft budget with a tax-supported operating and capital net tax rate increase range between 3.1 and 6.2% over the prior year in accordance with the town's budget and financial control policy. Julia?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, okay, so it is really hard to believe that it's time again to start talking about the next budget process. Seems like we just finished the last one. It's going to be another challenging year, we anticipate, as we navigate through the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is also our last budget of this term of council. So first of all, I'd like to review some of the comments, first of all, that were made during the 2021 budget debrief. So I did reach out to all the council members, and I had some great conversations with them about the budget. And overall, it seemed like there's a lot of positive comments and some good suggestions that came out of that. So the first one is the divisional budget meeting. So we did have informal meetings set up last year, and we do anticipate that we'll continue to do that again this year. So you may see some budget meetings being put into your calendars. So we hope that we can accommodate everyone. This is so that we can have those informal discussions just with a smaller group, just divisionally, so that, you know, all the committee members or the chairs and the vice chairs can ask, you know, all the hard questions and get the information that we need. So that was one part of our process that we're just formalizing. We put into our budget timelines. The other one is the timing at general committee. So we're trying to do some individual budget meetings, so that we'll have one budget meeting for operations and protective services at general committee, one budget meeting for community services, and then have another budget meeting for the rest of them. we did hear loud and clear from a lot of counselors that it's so much information all at once. So we're just trying to break it down so that we can have a bit more time on each of them. So there's more time for questions, that sort of thing. And that it's a very complex, we're a complex organization. We have a lot going on. So it is a lot of information, and I think it'll be really helpful if we try and break that down a little bit more. The other issue that was addressed too was that there were some specific issues that are not being addressed enough during the budget process. And so we wanted to give council members some time to think about any specific issues that you do want staff to bring back ahead of the budget process, so that we can incorporate that into the budget process or not incorporate it. But just so that if there is anything that you really want to make sure that we're spending that time on, that you're letting us know specifically what those are, and that we'll make sure that we bring that information back to you. So I just like to put that out there. If there are any items that maybe consider bringing them up towards the end of the meeting. The other one was to have a question period. So it was brought up that it would be great to have to provide council members with all the information, and then have a forum where you guys can ask questions. We can get the answers prepared for you, so that when we do get to the budget meeting where we're actually going to debate and go through and make decisions, that all those questions are already answered at that time, so that we can have a really efficient budget meeting, so that we can keep our budget meetings as concise as possible. So we did incorporate that into the budget guidelines, which are on Appendix A. So we're anticipating that it would be a fairly long period. So it'd be about 30 days, but it would be over Christmas. And we don't anticipate you spending your Christmas holidays doing that, but perhaps maybe before in early December, spending the time on that to go through, and then letting us know of any questions. But we'll give you more information on that and how we're going to flow that information as well. So that's that. So again, the timelines are on Appendix A. They're fairly similar to last year's timelines. We also just wanted to note that we have been in some discussions with MPAC. They did not do their assessment increase in 2022, and they haven't even committed to 23. So at this time, we're not sure when that next assessment increase or assessment revision will be. So everything is still based on the 2016 numbers, and they'll continue to do that until they're able to move forward with the next cycle. Last year, we intended to bring forward a multi-year budget. That was our plan, and due to COVID, we attempted it, and it was a bit tricky because of all the unknowns. So again, this year, we're going to continue to just do a one-year budget until we get past the pandemic a little bit further, so we can better estimate where we're going. And just further to Mayor Terziano's point, there's still $423,000 of it was called the COVID-19 2021 COVID-19 funding, which has not been used yet. That has been put into a reserve, so that is available to be used in the 2022 budget. And so we're hoping to use that to offset some COVID-19 pressures. So to the actual recommendation. So the policy that we have, the recommendation report follows the guidelines set out in the budget and financial reporting policy that the annual tax rate shall be within the range set year over year for CPI trim and 2 times that amount. So this year, CPI trim has been announced at 3.1. So based on that financial indicator, the range being brought forward by staff would be 3.1 and 6.2. So that would be the range of the tax increase that staff would be bringing back. The budget policy does use the tax rate rather than the levy increase to reflect growth that has occurred in our community, which does result in additional service delivery costs. So that's why we're using that rate rather than assessment. Oh, sorry, something's happened on my screen here. So based on the assessment that is currently expected for 22, this would result in a levy increase of about 3.388% to about 7.01%. However, that will change and it will go down further once we have more assessment in our roles. So once we have new growth that is reflected throughout the year, those rates will come down. So that rate's not set yet. At the lower amount, this would equate to about a $660,000 increase from the previous year in total. And as mentioned in the report, there's an expected increase in the capital funding of about $646,000. So that would actually, at the lower end, that would actually take that whole capital funding increase, and there wouldn't be much room left over for operating. Just a reminder that this term of council did make a commitment to increase the capital funding each year. And this is the last year for the $400,000 increase to roads capital. So it's also important to note that this is the guidelines for the budget preparation, and this doesn't commit council to our tax rate increase or our final budget numbers. This is what that staff are looking for as a target. So it's important for us to have a target so that we can work towards that goal that council does set. The recommendation in the report is to bring back a draft budget within these guidelines. And again, however, if council wishes to make an alternative recommendation, they can certainly do so at this time. So I'm here for any questions if there's any.
Okay, thanks for that. Council questions. Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for that, Julia. I would, in fact, like to request a different number that's not between the 3.1 and 6.2. I was hoping that you might look at a 2% number for this rate increase range, perhaps as well, just to give us an idea what that would look like. So my recommendation would be, I notice in the report you talk about, or you mentioned that these are the options. So it says, let me just, option 2, do not direct staff to prepare town consolidated 2022 draft budget, net tax between 3.1 and 6.2, provide further direction. I'm not saying don't prepare a 3.1, but I'd also like to see a 2 as well. I don't know if that needs to be incorporated in a motion or not, but that's what I'd like to see.
Okay, so I'm assuming that you would like to see the recommendation for staff to prepare a draft budget between 2% and something. So the lower end not being 3.1%, but 2%?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? I guess the thing is what we're doing right now with this recommendation is we're asking staff to go back and prepare a budget that falls within 3.1 and 6.2%. And if we're not prepared to approve a tax increase of 6%, we should not waste staff's time trying to do a budget at 6%. So I think it's very important that we tell staff today what percentage range we would be, because the policy says, they're recommending what the policy says. But if we're not prepared to approve that, we should give them a range that we are prepared to look at. Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree that 6% is quite drastic, but I think the minimum was 3.1. So if we're looking at bringing a draft budget back, we should see something up to 3.1. So if they want to start it at 2.5 to 3.1, I'd be more than favored to support something like that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Alcott.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Julia, for the thorough report. I guess I'm going back to the, if you're looking for support from council, it is a bit of a shift from 3.1 to 6.2. So I guess I'm reminding myself why it is we decided 6.2 would be our maximum. And I'm not sure if there's appetite around the table. Probably not for me, that it be 6.2. So is that fair to have staff, even look at that range if we're not going to support a 6.2?
Our policy says CPI trim times 2. So the range is, the CPI trim is 3.1, and our range is, our policy says it's 3.1 times 2. So that's where you get the 6.2 as the upper level.
Okay, thank you.
That's only
So-
bringing back a report based on the policy we approved. So,
So-
but you're right, we should give them a clearer direction today.
If I may respond to that, then, Your Worship, I think Councillor Withy's point, if we decrease the lower number to, instead of 3.1, it, might be 2 something and then times 2, so that it decreases the maximum limit. I don't know. I think that might be more realistic. Is that clear as mud? Probably.
Any other comments before we get to? Julia, you wanted to say something?
No, and go ahead with the comments. I'm just trying to draft up a revised motion here. So I just need, if there's a lower number and the upper number.
Okay. Councillor Withy.
Thank you. I mean, my lower number would be 0 if you want to start somewhere. But I think I liked Councillor Armour's comment about up to. I don't know how you put that write that in a motion to, but I think we need to see a lot of different options, and not to create a whole bunch more work. But if we picked a number like 2, we can get a sense of where that lands. That's just my opinion.
Madam CEO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I can definitely confirm that staff would appreciate having a general idea of what council would find a reasonable increase. Obviously, the 3.1 to 6.2 that was currently in a policy, that's why we brought it forward, but we know realistically a 6.2 is not even an option. So we would definitely like to have an understanding of what committee would support. Having said that, it's, as Julia noted, we have a very challenging budget year ahead of us. We took quite a few expenses off the 2021 budget because we needed to have the tax rate lower as per the direction of council, and we need to bring those costs back. So there's a lot of things that have fallen off the plate that need to come back. We don't have the tax assessment that we expected through MPAC for 2022. If we want to stick with council's commitment to increasing capital funding, that alone, if I'm not mistaken, is a 3% increase all by itself, just the capital increase. So it's not factoring in things such as insurance increase, utility increases. So your senior team is very committed to try to bring this budget in as low as possible. And if it means we have to make recommendations with respect to service cuts, then we're prepared to do that. So I think, as requests come to the table about future expenses, I would just respectfully ask that committee keep in mind that we already have an extremely difficult budget year ahead of us. And if we add stuff on, it means something is going to have to fall off. But we are 100% supportive of trying to meet the objectives of the committee to bring in a low budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess my concern is, as Denise has just mentioned, we are, and we've been told this before, we were warned earlier this year that 2022 is going to be a really difficult year, which is one of the reasons why I guess I proposed or was against placing some of that COVID money into this year as opposed to sandbagging it until next year. But I'm concerned that we are going to be handcuffing our different departments by putting in a 2% or a 2.5%. I know that traditionally and historically, we've always counted on the school board for reducing their levy, and that impacts on our overall tax rate, and of course the district as well. So I'd be really reluctant at this point to change the percentages. Maybe looking at some options and what that, if it's possible to do that, what impact it would have by going to a 2.5 to 5, that kind of thing, as opposed to a 3.1 to 6.2 type of thing. If we could get some kind of an idea, where the cuts would have to go, maybe some of us would not be so anxious to make those cuts going forward. We've had a tremendously successful plan going forward with capital in public works, and I'd like to see, I think we'd all like to see that continue. And we've already heard that $400,000 is going to, that we've budgeted in every year since the start of 2 terms ago, I guess, has had such a significant and major and valuable impact on our infrastructure and our roads and so on and so forth. So I'd be really reluctant at this point to change that at this point. Maybe going forward, we could look at some other options type of thing, but I'd be reluctant at this point to change those figures, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I did also want to say that in reading the report, I do appreciate the fact of all of the work that went into the process for getting us to the final budget. I do believe, Julia, that you did hear a lot of comments that were made, and so I did recognize that in that. And so I think, to your point, we have lots of room along the way to decide, okay, this is too much, this is too high, let's trim this. And so not that I completely align with Councillor Thompson, but perhaps this is a guide. My only comment was 6.2 is unrealistic, and I didn't want people to sort of spend time on that. But if I'm hearing that that is the range, I don't know, I guess I would lower the range from like 2.5 to 5 or something like that.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you. I think to Councillor Thompson's comments, I mean, this is actually what we're asking for, is for options to look at. It's not telling them that, you know, let's leave the numbers and do all your work at 3.1 to 6.2 when 2 might be where we're landing anyways. I mean, certainly don't waste time on doing a 6.2 as even the CAO has mentioned, but let's move the range down a bit. If we're going to start doing this work, we might as well start it now to give us the options to consider. It's not about saying 3.1 isn't where we land, but at least we can see something at a lower level as well while you're in the process. That's basically keeping options open, not you know, landing on these particular numbers in the policy.
Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do I appreciate the comments that have been made so far. I do tend to agree with Councillor Alcock. I think that slightly lowering the range and maybe lessening the range might be in our better interest, to do something like 2.4 to 4 even, to tighten it up and to just to give us a smaller range to work within. I think will get us to working a little harder, a little faster, and will get us probably to where we need to be without dragging it into the new year too far. So that would be my comment.
Council, I just want to remind you of one thing. We have a policy that says the budget's to be brought in between this range and this range. What we need to do today is to give staff a range, a maximum range to bring a budget in at, not the minimum. We need a maximum. The staff's not going to go back and prepare a 2% budget and a 4% budget or any other number. We need to give them the upset amount that we're prepared to consider in a draft budget, not a range here. That's just what our policy says. Sorry, Councillor Fitzgerald, you were next.
Thank you, Worship. And I think this is a great exercise. We made the policy originally, as Councillor Thompson alluded to increase capital and capital reserves in our roads projects. I think the funny thing is that we gave the parameters there because then we had the option to add things to the budget. So I feel what's going to happen is staff is going to come back with, if we recommend a 2% budget, and we're going to realize that there's a lot of things missing that we feel are important to our constituents. So I think if we pick an upper number and have them work to that upper number and what is comfortable for us. So the current policies seem to work, and I know that it's never come in at that number to begin with, because that's not staff's mandate to come in with the highest number. So do we say 0 to 4%? I think let's do that. It's in fairness to staff and the discussions that we've had here, and send it at that 0 to 4%.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, Your Worship. Yeah, I think I like your suggestion, Mayor Terziano, with regards to providing staff with an upper limit type of thing, and working towards that. I think that makes eminent sense too. So I would support that.
Okay, Councillor Stone.
I would agree. And if we're looking for an upper number, I'd say 4. But then we'll chop from there if we need to.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Just that, last year, I think we were less than 1%, like 0.35%, and we had to cut a lot of programs. This year, we need to bring those programs back, and there's going to be a cost associated with that. So I could definitely support something at the higher range of maxing out around 4. So.
Okay, I think I'm hearing that there would be some support for 4. So I'm going to suggest that our treasurer or clerk prepare an amendment to the resolution based on what they've heard. And while they do that, I'm also going to suggest that we take a 5-minute biological break. So see everybody back here at 10:36. Okay, just about have everyone back. Tanya, have you or Julia prepared something, or who can share their screen to?
I can share the screen.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, I'm gonna make sure Councillor Fitzgerald's back here before I read his name out.
Back.
Right? Okay. We have a resolution on the table. Is there a seconder for this?
I'd second it.
Okay, Councillor Stone. So it reads, moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Stone, is recommended that following be removed after rate increase, range between 3.1 and 6.2 over prior year in accordance with the town's budget and financial control policy. And the following be added after rate increase up to 4% over the prior year. Okay, thanks, Tanya. Julia, is that good enough direction to?
Certainly, Your Worship, that will provide staff with direction on coming back with a draft budget.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment? That carries. So then I guess we need the main motion as amended. Moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Stone. It's recommended the committee direct staff to prepare the town consolidated 2022 draft budget with a tax-supported operating and capital net tax rate increase up to 4% over the prior year. Questions, comments? All in favor? And that carries. And I noticed we didn't actually get Councillor Thompson back, but he's not even on the screen, is he? Okay. Just a comment maybe as staff work towards the budget too. I know that we have a bylaw that says staff and council get a cost of living increase, which apparently is the CPI trim, which is 3.1%. So maybe considering SWB is 75% of our budget, we look at bringing something back to adjust that for this year. And also I think maybe adjusting our capital contribution expectations, because in 23 we will eventually get the new assessment from Impact, and when we do, that's going to add a big bump, I think, to our tax base, and maybe that's when we catch up. So, you know, it's just a suggestion rather than continually looking at ways to cut things, maybe look at ways to do things a little bit differently for 1 year. Julia?
I'm not sure if I can mention it, but just along that same line. So as I mentioned, just if there are any other areas that council at this time does want us to focus in and look at. So I have made note of that the COLA for staff as well as the capital contribution. So if there are any other specific items that council does want us to address, I'd be happy to take that back to our teams.
Okay. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess there will be a big nut in assessment once Impact does the reassessment, but I think that values are going to be so increased based on current market trends that they're going to have to go with a long phased-in approach. So I think to try and plan for that in 1 or 2 or 3 years even is probably not very realistic. I think it'll be dragged out over the 5 to 7 year period. So we have to consider that as well. And I really do like our capital contribution programs. We're getting so many things done. So I would be reluctant to stop doing that.
Yeah, you're probably quite right about the phase in. Okay, I just got a text from Councillor Thompson. He's lost his internet, so he may not be rejoining us. We'll see if he gets it back at any point. Which brings us to a resolution that I have moved by Councillor Thompson. So if I could have a new mover of the next resolution. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Alcott. A resolution is recommended, moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald, is recommended that application RC 06-2021 HTE and application RC 12-2021 HTE be approved in accordance with the OSRA Policy Development 07 with the following configuration. That the portion of the ORA between concession 8 and 9 Chafee abutting part of lot 3 concession 9 be closed in its entirety, and that the portion of ORA concession 8 and 9 Chafee abutting part of lot 4 concession 8 be closed and split with both applicants. Conditional on the applicant paying all survey, legal, and associated expenses. The sale price of the land proposed to be closed in accordance with the fees and charge bylaw as amended. A survey and duplicate be provided showing the road allowance as a specific part on the plan. A registered transfer deed of land for the road allowance to be filed with the municipality within 1 year of the date of the motion approving the application, or the motion will be considered null and void, and a new application will be required. That any utility plant located on the property proposed to be closed be given an easement. The road allowance is hereby declared as surplus to the town's need. Application RC 06-2021, the portion of the road allowance between being closed merge in title with part 3 lot 9, part lot 4 concession 9, and part lot 3 concession 8 Chafee. All parcels being part lot 3 concession 9, part lot 4 concession 9, part lot 3 concession 8 Chafee, and ORA merge in title to become one lot and not separately conveyable. Application RC 12-2021, the road allowance being closed, merge in title of part lot 4 concession 8 Chafee, and further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the necessary documentation pertaining to the closure and sale of said road allowance. Jessica, you can make more sense of what I just read.
I hope so. Thank you. May I share my screen while I am speaking?
Please do.
Okay. So this report is on a road closing and sale of town lands being an original road allowance. The road allowance that is subject of this application has an area of approximately 3,324.5 square meters. I will share my screen now. You can see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the road allowance leads to a pond, which is similar in nature to Can Lake, but approximately double the size. It's shown on our mapping system as a body of water and wetland, not a lake. Our official plan does not permit closing of a road allowance leading to water without another access in another usable location accessible to the public, and that's shown on Appendix 4 on the report. Further, Parks confirmed no concerns with the closure. So the first application received was Peacock Hollingshead, which is shown on my screen here. And they applied for the portion in orange. The purpose is to merge all of the parcels of land, being the red and the orange, into one. As part of that application, the applicants are required to have the abutting landowner sign, so the parcel in green. I spoke with that owner. The owner requested a call from town staff instead of signing off on the application. And during that call, they advised that they would be submitting an application for that portion abutting their land. which is shown here in blue. The original road allowance closing policy does not speak to duplicate applications or provide direction for staff, nor has this scenario happened before. Town staff suggested that the parties come to a mutual arrangement to split the portion that they're both abutting, but the second applicant feels deserving of the full 66 feet as he has a very small vacant lot with minimal building potential. Staff are recommending the approval as shown in this diagram. Contained within the road allowance is a barn, which you can see by my cursor there, which is currently being used by the first applicant. The barn was thought to be within the northern half as it's indicated in these images, but the exact location is unknown. The applicants have since expressed some concerns about whether the barn is contained within the northern portion. Should the barn be on the southern half and the application is approved as recommended, the encroachment will become a private issue. I do not recommend an approval with a condition regarding the barn because there are too many hypothetical scenarios to consider with respect to setbacks and consideration for the second applicant. I am happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council? Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so as it stands, staff recommended that the parcel be split the way it was on the screen. Have both parties now come to the table and said, okay, we're okay with this? Or is there still an ongoing dispute with who gets what?
Jessica?
The first applicant is quite open to the division, but the second applicant said no. He wanted the full portion, and that's why I'm here at committee today.
Follow up, Councillor Weed?
Thank you. No, I'm actually more inclined to go with the original proposal, which would be the original applicant is given the right to purchase the entire parcel. I don't think the basis of, well, my lot's smaller, so I should get it, has any merit. I think I'm open to exploring the original application, actually.
Are there any other questions? Deputy Mayor Alpha.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Jessica, for, I think that was a thorough report. And as I understand it, I think you just said this, and that was the original applicant is okay with your proposal. It's the second applicant that isn't, but they're fine with what you're presenting, the original.
Jessica?
Sorry, I just want to clarify. They are fine with that proposal. However, they do want to ensure that they retain use of that barn.
Right, and if I may, Your Worship, follow up that your proposal allows them to retain use of the barn, right? You've adjusted it so that it does that.
We don't, sorry. We don't have a survey of the land and the air photos are not survey accurate. So we do believe that the barn is within that area. However, we would need a survey to confirm that 100%.
So my concern is that we divide that piece of the road allowance 33 feet to each applicant, and that the first applicant's barn is indeed over the 33 feet, and we're just causing them a problem. So I would hope that we would at least defer this until the applicant is able to determine by survey that their barn is on 33 feet. Otherwise, I would not be in favor of splitting that at 33 feet each. Councillor Weeb?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I would concur with those comments. I would almost work into the motion that whatever ensures full status of the barn fully on the property, that's where the split should be. So if it's 40 feet, it should be 40 feet. Because you're right, if we put it 1 foot over, we've opened up a mess that will never be resolved. So if we can do that in our wording somehow, then that's something I would be open to.
I think Jessica has indicated that we can't, but that maybe the applicant will try to get a survey done if we were to defer. Is that correct, Jessica?
That is correct.
Deputy Mayor Alcott?
I just want to say I concur with Councillor Weeb and with you. I think that that's the right way to go. You want to ensure that the first applicant continues to have access to the barn. So
Could someone move for deferral? Councillor Withey.
I was just going to say that actually, you know, I think that's the right answer. We need it, with all these things, you need to get all the information in. So you need to do the survey. So I would motion to defer.
Tanya?
I have the motion prepared for you if you'd like to put it up.
Sure. Councillor Schumacher, your hand was
I
up.
was just going to second it.
Thank you. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It is recommended that Report Corp 2021-57 original road allowance closure, Peacock, Hollinshead, and Osmond be both postponed until staff receive a survey confirming the location of the barn on the road allowance. Jessica, will that work for us to defer this until the applicant confirms with us the barn is on?
Okay, if I could make a suggestion rather than a survey, but confirmation by a surveyor.
Okay. I think that suggests that they don't have to do a full survey at this time because they'll have to do it eventually, right?
Correct.
Can we change that, Tanya? Be postponed until staff receive confirmation by a surveyor confirming the location of the barn on the road allowance. Work? All in favor? And that carries. Corporate services, one more. Madam CAO, a Lakeland Holding update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report is before you for information. It's just a standard update that Lakeland provides to us, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions from council? Okay, we're into operations and protective services, and we have an update on roads capital, and a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Stone, is recommended that committee approves the amended 2021 roads capital work plan for transportation attached as Appendix I to report Ops 2021-29 and directs staff to bring back a report outlining funding options at the completion of the construction season once final costing has been determined. Kevin, Steve?
I'm going to start and then turn it over to Kevin. Unfortunately, he had a computer problem, so we're sharing one screen. So I know Kevin has a PowerPoint presentation, and I will fire that up for him right now. Share. Here you go, Kevin. It's all yours. From the beginning.
Thank you, Council. Sorry for the inconvenience here, but we're working our way through it. Can everyone see the screen okay?
Yeah.
Right. The first slide we've got here is East Wasiosa. This was damage occurred in one of the latest storms we had there towards the end of July. A lot of water came out of the hydro allowance, the road allowance there onto the road. You can see the damage that's caused on the road. Large washouts and craters going through the road. Town staff were able to come up that night with a lot of material, a lot of stone, and make this passable for the residents in the area to get in and out. It was only out of service for a couple hours. We are working on repairs to this. It is still presently stone. We moved our brushing contractor into the area to clear out the trees. Our rock breaking contractor was out there yesterday, actually, and our ditching contractor is out there presently. So before we go and repave this, we just wanted to make sure that we took some actions to keep this from happening again and costing us more down the road. This was a culvert failure we had on Old Muskoka. This is the new culverts that are in. And these are 2 6-foot double culverts. They've been put back and the road's been paved and put back together. Williamsport, we had another culvert failure here. We had to get a contractor in to help us with this one. Just with the depth of it, we're looking at about 30 feet down, just deeper than a lot of our equipment can get to. So we had to get a contractor in. You can see it's paved and back in service again now. Stevenson 2, we had another deep culvert here. This one was about 50 feet down there. You can see that it's been replaced and new stone up there. This one was not paved. It's actually on the high float list for this year and is presently being worked on to get high float done on it right now as we speak. Some of the expenses we have incurred this season: Stevenson 2, which we just talked about, Old Muskoka, Williamsport Road, and the road resurfacing for East Spacioso. That's an estimated $50,000. That's just for the pavement. Our brushing, rock breaking, and ditching contractor, that would be into their capital accounts for that work. So we've just kind of moved around where they are working to make up and clean this up. The traffic control module on Howland Drive, that's kind of at the Walmart Plaza there. I think I did send something a little while ago. So there's loops in the road out there. There was loops in the roads, and those sensors would notify people for the traffic lights to change depending on the traffic volume and the cars that are waiting. So we had 2 of them fail, one coming from the Dairy Queen and one coming out of the Walmart. So it was a decision of whether we were going to fix those 2 or look at replacing them all or come up with a new system. So we went with this new system. It came in at $30,000, actually was installed just the other day. We are monitoring it to watch the timing, make sure the timing is okay. But now this system is a camera that's above and takes care of the whole intersection. So instead of repairing each lane, which there's up to 10 lanes there and 10 loops in there, at $5,000 to $10,000 each, we have one system now. It's a camera overhead. It was a cost of $30,000, and it does all the lanes all at once. So no more inconvenience of having to dig up the road or repair the road or take lanes away for the traffic. The crosswalk on Main Street, that's an estimated $100,000. I'll talk about it again in a little minute. The engineering storm facilities, $35,000. Then we just came out with a report. So they're looking for all municipalities to submit all your storm facilities and storm sewers plans. Fortunately for us, over the last couple of years, we've done an inventory of all our storm sewers. So we're well ahead of that. Our storm ponds, we have to tie in our storm ponds to this. So this is going to be around $35,000 to have an engineer come in and tie our storm ponds in with our storm system. And the MOE is looking for this for around November 1st. And they're going to be reviewing all this with all the municipalities. Grants received, we did get a $75,000 grant for Main Street. It was brought to council a little while ago. And the $100,000 we've just received. And that's for the crosswalk at Yonge and Main. This project is to be started in September and has to be finished by December 31st. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that there might be.
Questions, Council? Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Kevin. With the $100,000 for the crosswalk at Main and Yonge, do we have any issues getting contractors to come do that? With them all being so busy right now?
We are presently through you, Mayor, to Councillor Armour. We are presently working with an engineering firm to have this designed. There's a lot of moving parts to this, the traffic volumes, traffic counts, sight lines. So we are presently working with an engineer to get this together, to get this out. We have talked to a couple contracts that we've used for this kind of stuff in the past, and it looks like we're going to have the availability of the equipment and the contractor. But it has to go to tender still.
Councillor Wethy.
Thank you, Your Worship, and not a question, but a comment. I just wanted to say, Kevin, you are doing an amazing job. And I have been hearing back from members of the community that have interacted with you personally, and they're very impressed, and so am I. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Kevin, with the Yonge Street crosswalk, with a $100,000 grant, if the project comes in over, I take it that we would be on the hook for that?
What we've seen so far from our engineer, what designs were coming in, we're going to be okay. We should be okay. We might actually end up with some extra money to do some sidewalks, but with the designs and everything and the traffic counts we're still working with the district on, it's too early to say yes or no anyway, but it looks like we're going to be okay for the crosswalk portion.
Okay. Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Kevin, I can imagine with the car count's probably going to be lower with Main Street being closed. A lot of people are probably diverting around that area, not coming down there. So probably going to really mess up your numbers a little bit.
We're, through you, Mayor, we're working with the district, so that's counts that they've had in the past already. So they have pedestrian counts, they have traffic counts from the last couple of years.
Okay, all in favor? That carries. I have another resolution moved by Councillor Thompson. I need a new mover, please. Councillor Weeb. No, Councillor Weeb, you're the seconder. Councillor Schumacher. Moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Weeb, is recommended the committee direct staff to prepare a bylaw to establish that the 1 foot reserve, namely Block L, M503 Forest Glen Road, Town of Huntsville, be assumed as a public road and that said bylaw be registered. And that is Brandon. Somehow we've missed one. I don't have a resolution here, but let's go ahead with the 1 foot reserve, Brandon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So what we have here is more of a simple housekeeping item. We've got a 1 foot reserve transferred to the Township of Brunel in 1968 along Forest Glen Road. So what we would like to do is add that to the road allowance and pass a bylaw to reflect as such and have it registered. You'll see on the map the location for it. So it's more of a housekeeping formality if I can. And that's where that sits.
Questions, Council? All in favor? And that carries. Sorry, Brandon, I skipped by. There was no resolution. It's your information report on road assumptions. Do you want to speak to that for Council? There's no resolution, Council, but it's for information.
Absolutely, Your Worship. What we have here is a road assumption report. It's changed a little bit from the previous ones. What we have here is Settlers Ridge Phase 5 subdivision, Braeside Crescent, Selkirk Drive, Muskoka Meadows subdivision Phase 1, which is Woodstream Drive and Millwood Court, as well as an unopened road allowance development to municipal standard through a severance application, which is a portion of Summerlee Trail. To point out that these roads, Settlers Ridge and Muskoka Meadows, were developed in accordance with the subdivision agreement and approved through the planning process. The Summerlee Trail was built in conformance through the unassumed road allowance improvement agreement. So this report again is for information only to inform committee that these roads have now been constructed in accordance with the contract documents and has been inspected by all staff to confirm that. So again, we're looking to adopt these roads. They will be added to the capital plans, the maintenance plans, and you can find the capital and operational dollar constraints over the next 20 years for your reference. And the maps at the end of the report also stipulates the exact locations. So just bringing that to your information today.
Thanks for that. Are there any questions, Council? Okay, thanks, Brandon. Next, we're into parks, and I have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It is recommended that committee approve the purchase of safety netting on baseball diamond C at the Macaulay Robertson Recreation Park in 2021 to be received in 2022, and further that the amount of $22,940 be included in the 2022 Parks capital budget to be offset by the Parks capital reserve. Colleen.
Thank you, Mayor. So in this report, we describe the safety concern that the netting mitigates between the outfield of Diamond C and the North Soccer Field. The netting is scheduled to be replaced due to some damage. One of the major problems we're having with this area and many other areas is the interruption in supply of materials and supplies right now, mostly brought on by COVID and transportation and shipping issues. Therefore, in order to ensure that we can do that replacement in probably April of next spring, before the playing season starts, we wanted to order it and purchase it now, so that we don't wind up at the beginning of next year not being able to take delivery of that material. So that's the reason for this report today.
Questions, Council? Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Worship. So that 22,000, that's for the material, or is that installation, or how does the breakdown?
That is material as well as installation.
Follow up?
Yeah, sorry. So who's installing? We're contracting it to be installed?
Oh, through you, Mayor Terziano. Yes, I'm sorry about that. Yes, definitely a contractor will be installing it. So the springtime, as soon as the snow is melted and the ground is dried enough, we need a lift device in there and a contractor to actually do that installation for us.
Good. Any other questions? All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Withey, and I need a seconder. The next resolution, Deputy Mayor Alcott. Whereas the town received a gift of $42,685 plus HST from Wolf and Helen McQuinn in memory of Gladys and Bill McQuinn for the purchase and installation of a columbarium at the Medill Church Cemetery, 262 Old Muskoka Road. Therefore, it is recommended that committee accepts the donation and directs staff to coordinate the installation in 2022. Colleen.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. I will mention first that Wilf McQuinn is on vacation right now, or he would have joined me just to field any questions or anything like that. He's in Newfoundland right now. So I told him I would present this with his blessing, and the donation has been offered, and we were seeking committee's acceptance of that donation. There is a picture included with the report that gives an idea of the design that has been arranged.
Questions, Council? Deputy Mayor Alpha.
I'll be short. Thanks for that, Colleen, and what a wonderful gift. Great contribution. And so I obviously, that's terrific. I just wondered if it would make sense just in your consultation to reach out to the Medill Church historical group, just to let them know, and because they have their AGM, I believe, on Sunday. So not that you have to do it by Sunday, but I think it, since they're an immediate neighbor, I think it would just be a nice thing to do.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor? And that carries. And I do have to say, it's quite an amazing and lovely gift to add to our Medill Cemetery. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Stone. It is recommended that staff be directed to proceed with the hiring of WSP Sports Field Consultant for the design and tender of 4 dedicated pickleball courts at the Macaulay Robertson Recreation Park, not to exceed $20,000 and to be funded through Parkland Reserve. And further, that staff be directed to proceed with the building of 4 dedicated pickleball courts, including site works required located between the skateboard park and the South Soccer Field area in an amount not to exceed $220,000. And further, that resolution number 1/2021 be hereby rescinded. Pauline.
Actually, Mayor Terziano, I'll take this one if that's all right.
Absolutely all right.
Thank you. So as council will recall, we had agreed to build 4 pickleball courts over on the Macaulay Robertson property as you're driving down the road on the left-hand side. In preparation of the tender work for that, we surveyed the line to confirm it. And unfortunately, we found out the fence line was actually 60 feet off. So we didn't own as much property as we were led to believe that we owned over there. And bottom line is the original location we had picked, the courts would not fit. So we went back to the Macaulay Robertson original report we had. We met with some of the baseball folks. We met with the pickleball people, and we relooked at the sites over there. And we're now recommending that we go to site number 4, which is attached on your drawing. It was originally slated as some curling club space, but the curling club is now staying put where they are with the added parking they have. So we're recommending that the 4 dedicated pickleball courts be put in this area here. 2 things which have changed on this report, because we've gone from a open site to a site that we're going to have to clear and create some parking on and connect it through some trails. We have some additional site work estimated at $40,000. And the other $20,000 was to bring WSP back, which is the group that's been working with us over there on the layouts of the diamonds and whatnot, to make sure that we have the proper layout so we don't interfere with the Frisbee golf that plays through that area, and to make sure it ties in nicely with the soccer fields and the washroom buildings and such as that. So we're back before you with the same 4 pickleball courts. There is an increased cost, total of an increased cost of $60,000 more, to bring the total project estimated now up to $220,000, which will still be funded through the Parks Reserves. And we're here seeking approval on that today. Like I say, we have asked that we can go out and hire WSP. They did the work with us organizing that space and with the ball diamonds. They have the survey background work, and this will help speed the process up so we can get it going and at least get it to tender this year.
Questions? Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm wondering, could you not just go to tender, and the people that know all about constructing pickleball courts be able to answer all those questions about site availability and things like that, to save that money going to WSP again? I mean, other projects we just sort of go to tender with. I mean, the people that construct the courts are experts on where they can go and what they need to see. I'm just wondering if we could save that consultant money by just going to tender.
Steve?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, we certainly could if that's council's direction. A request for proposal. We just wanted to get WSP involved because we're getting into a little tighter area, and we wanted to make sure that we're doing the best layout for the area with the connecting trails. We do know we are going to have to do some soil work in there. We just want to confirm what it is, so everybody's bidding on the same picture, if you will. But if it's council's direction, we can drop the consulting work, and we can go out for an RFP and basically show the general area that we want and see what we receive.
Follow up, please.
Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation. I mean, let's save the 20 grand and see what the people that know how to build these come up with giving them, the parameters of whereabouts we would like to have it. That would be my recommendation. It's a lot of money.
Any other questions? Councillor Stone?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sad that we have to move it. I'm sad that we have to clear a whole bunch of trees. I hope we're going to minimize the tree clearing, but my question is, are we going to create another situation like we have in Port Sydney if we don't clear a whole lot of trees?
Steve?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, that's what we were hoping our consultants would have helped us to figure out what the buffer zone would be. So we are going to have to clear larger than just the court area. I can tell you from walking the land with the different user groups, it's not like we're into a hardwood forest, if you will. A lot of scrub brush in there that's going to be cleared. I don't think there's any huge loss, if you will, given the fact that we're in Muskoka and we have lots of trees, but we do have to create a buffer around it as well so we don't run into the exact same situation that we have in Port Sydney.
Just a short follow-up. Will it be right next to the road? So we don't have to go right into the middle of those trees?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, the intent is to keep it close to the road and close to the soccer washroom building up in that top corner. And the intent was also, as soon as you come off the road, was to create some diagonal parking across there. So hopefully we can increase the parking in that area for 9 or 10 cars, a pathway into it, the clearing with the courts in there, and then a pathway connecting it back to the washroom building.
Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Worship. I like the comments that we've heard so far. I guess my only fear is that if we just go out for a tender, are we considering everything else that's going on in that area and all the uses that can possibly come in the future? So we may be shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't take everything under consideration rather than just go out for that one feature that we're looking for in that park. So food for thought. I'm just want to throw it out there. I don't like spending $20,000 either, but what is our long-term range planning there? So a consultant may be a valid option, and I'm willing to hear some more comments.
Councillor Weed?
Thank you, Worship. I'm okay with the suggestion made by Councillor Withey. I would be okay with going with just out to tender. And my comments would be, as long as we can add a little bit of extra parking by the road, which it looks like, Steve, you've already mentioned that, which is great. I think if we keep in mind clearing the trees to the south of the courts and trying to keep as much trees to the east and west to prevent the long light from affecting the players, and yet keeping that south open so that it keeps the courts dry, I think we'll have a great setup. So I don't think there's much to discuss in terms of consultation. I think that's what we need. I think if that's what we get, everyone's gonna be pretty happy with it. So let's do it.
Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Worship. Again, I mean, just to reiterate, I think that we know the area that we wanted to go in, and I think that the tender and the experts that build it would be able to see how it fits. I mean, it's not like we're looking at the whole town to try to find a place. So I think going straight to tender would be the best way myself. Thanks.
Councillor Armour?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering if you did an RFP, if you give them the other options that we listed around the McCullough Robertson Ball Diamonds, and maybe they'd be easier to bid on one of those and actually in that area that your suggestion.
I guess maybe just to clarify, I believe, Steve, that we have already picked the site, so we're not asking WSP to come in and evaluate different sites. We know exactly where we're going to put it, and I get why you might want WSP to come in, but at $20,000, once we've already picked the site, I'm a little leery to spend that on a consultant as well. Councillor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, if we've chosen the site already, I can't see the necessity in having WSP come in. So I agree with Councillor Withey's motion.
Councillor, are you moving to amend the resolution? Tanya, are you preparing that?
Yes, Chair Terziano, if I could just share my screen for one moment to get the final motion, and we can go backwards and do the amendment first. Would that be okay?
Sure.
And I also would like Director Hernan to make sure that I have the wording correct as per what he needs. So I'll put it up now. Thank you. So that would be the final motion. If I could ask Director Hernan first, would that be okay for you?
If we're taking the consultant out, we could drop that price to $200,000.
Okay. So that would be the final, if that's what council and committee or committee is looking for, and I can go backwards from there.
Okay, so the amendment will basically be to.
I just have to change the amount, Chair Terziano. Is that it was moved by
Moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald.
Okay.
It is recommended that the following paragraph be struck out. It is recommended that staff be directed to proceed with the hiring of WSP Sport Field Consultant for the design and tender of 4 dedicated pickleball courts at the Macaulay Robertson, not to exceed $20,000 and be funded through Parkland. And the following words be added to the second paragraph after proceed with a request for proposal. The amount of 220 be changed to 200. All in favor of the amendment? And that carries. And then you saw the main motion, which was up there, and I'm not going to read it again. All in favor of the main motion as amended? And that carries. Thank you, Tanya. And we have one more for you, Steve. Moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Is recommended that committee direct staff to consult with the public on usage and possible changes to improve the safety at Port Sydney Beach and report back to committee. Steve.
So at the last committee meeting, there was a discussion around staff bringing back a report on suggested changes for the Port Sydney Beach and the mooring of boats. I can tell you we've done a lot of research on that right now and answered a lot of questions internally. The biggest question we heard from the public, and there was a lot of uproar saying that we can't control what happens in the water. So the land on which the water is situated is the lake bed is owned by the M&R, Ministry of Natural Resources. The only way that we could ever control or monitor or change any of the uses down there is if we entered into a land use permit with the M&R. And we've had a discussion with them and they're quite willing to allow us to do so. There would be a fee attached to that. They haven't been able to provide us with an estimate at this point in time. But if council wanted to control or monitor or set rules on docking and mooring of boats, we would have to enter into a land use permit. We've confirmed this with the Coast Guard. We have confirmed this with Transport Canada, that is in fact the requirements. If we were into an agreement on a land use permit, we could then say no anchoring or mooring of boats in certain locations. We could then designate swim areas and keep boats out of the swim areas. So lots of discussion in the media, lots of emails coming in when this topic was discussed, and a lot of input from a lot of people on how things could be changed or improved or why they shouldn't be or how they should be left alone. So staff feels that we're now in a position that we're not ready to make any recommendations down there. We feel that more public consultation is required on this. And what we're simply asking for today is permission to start the public consultation process, listen to what the people have to say, come up with some sort of game plan, if you will, and bring it back to council for further consideration as to whether you would want us to move forward with a land use permit application. If we wanted a land use permit application, we have to give the M&R a detailed description of what we're doing. So applying for a land use permit today and saying we're not sure what we want to do down there is a waste of time. They need to know where we wanted to put boats, where we wanted to put swim areas, and what our full intended use of the land is. So that's the research we've done to date. Bottom line is, if we apply for a land use permit and the M&R has indicated to us they certainly see the need of some control down there for safety issues and would support our application, but they need a detailed plan. So council has 3 options as we laid out in the report today. We could proceed at least for some public consultation and see if we can come up with a plan that works for the community, bring it back to council, and then move forward. Because it is not our land today, we could simply just advise the M&R in writing that the concerns that have been raised, and let the M&R do what they want with their land. Or once again, because it is not our land, we've got the rights just to walk away and turn a blind eye to it, which staff is not recommending. So simply today, we're asking for permission to move forth and have some more engagement with the public as to what they would like to see in that area.
Okay. Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a problem with public consultation. I do kind of like option 2, though. I mean, it says in the body of your report that the ministry is aware, well aware of the increase. Like, they need to do something about it, I guess, is my opinion. I don't know why, you know, if they've identified themselves that there's issues, I mean, what the heck, you know, it's deal with your problem. But having said that, I'm certainly not against consulting with the public, and maybe you can combine option 1 and 2 and say, okay, public, you know, report back the findings and fire it off to the ministry and say, get on it. I mean, I don't agree with getting into a land use permit. I've been involved with those myself personally, and they're just they're a nightmare. So I would suggest public consultation, and I don't know if it's appropriate at this time. Maybe later we can look at option 2 by saying, look at, you know, you need to take a more active role in what you own. Simple as that.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Sorry, Your Worship, did you acknowledge me?
Yes, I did.
My screen, my sound broke up there. Thanks, Director Hernan, for that. I've had lots of feedback on this, most of it positive and helpful, and some of it not very. I guess the original premise of the discussion and why we should do this was primarily for water quality and safety. So currently, I guess we could end up with 200 or 300 boats down there because the ministry doesn't appear to want to be hands-on or do anything with it. So, you know, the last anchor I saw go in was a milk crate full of brake rotors. So who knows how much asbestos was on it. I see an issue, and I think that the public consultation should definitely happen. Maybe something will come out of there, and we can end up with a compromise of options 1 and 2. I think that's probably too early to tell, but I would definitely support the public consultation and see what ideas people have and what we can come up with there. So thanks again, Director Hearn.
Okay, all in favor of the resolution? Oh, hang on, sorry, Councillor Schumacher, just before we vote.
Yeah, no, I was just going to concur. Like Councillor Fitzgerald, obviously, I've heard a lot of feedback from all uses: kayakers, canoers, boaters, swimmers, everything. So I think there is definitely a need for public input, and I would really like to hear from them.
Okay, all in favor? And that carries. Okay, community services, no reports, but Greg, are you going to give us a little update on COVID-19 as it relates to community services?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Terziano, and through you. I've got quite a few updates, but I'll try to go quickly to keep it in line with the meeting, and I'll start with Ironman. I'm sure you're all aware Ironman is this Sunday, August 29th. They've had 1,100 athletes register. We're expecting about 900 will be coming. Just the regular attrition, and there is a full road closure on Burnell Road from 10:30 until 2:30 p.m. On Sunday. So signage is up. Stronger signage is going up this afternoon just to reiterate the closure on that, and that is this Sunday. Day camp, we've had a successful day camp this season. It's been modified with lower numbers, new rules due to COVID, but the kids have had a ton of fun and the response from parents has been wonderful and very positive. Muskoka Heritage Place has had a fantastic season, meeting the demands of the community and the visitors and doing it with fantastic attendance, all while following COVID protocols. And Ron has even had to add extra train trips, which is great. Aquatics, we're looking at a full season starting in the fall for the fall winter. Late September will be the start for that. The beach lessons and recertification courses have been very successful and filled a huge demand in the community and the aquatics industry. Regarding the theater, the manager has returned this month and we are able to open with a 50% capacity, which would have us just over 200 people allowed indoors. Matt has begun taking bookings, opening up ticket sales and rentals in September. Promoters are mostly booking space for shows in 2022 and beginning to sell those tickets as well. To start off with, the theater is going to host the elections candidate debate and an AO paddle display. And they're going to continue looking for stage and partner hall rentals moving forward. The auditorium space at the Canada Summit Center will become programming and rental space after the end of next week once the day camp season has ended. Many of our programs that can happen will restart in September for seniors, youth, and adults. And all of our programs will continue to be required pre-booking just to follow the contact tracing and COVID protocols. The Jack Arena has had ice in it since August 3rd. We have had an actually regular August month for ice, so it's been really nice over here. We've had heavy take up on that. We've lost our day camp, our summer camps that usually take ice, but it's been filled by locals picking up extra ice, and the figure skating club has done a lot this summer and for the month of August, so it's been great seeing the arena been busy. The Dawn, we're going to be turning on the plant on September 3rd in the Dawn Lock, and the ice will be ready to go on September 13th. And it's been a long time since we've had 2 ice pads going, so we're quite excited for that. Shinny and other ice programs are going to begin on the week of September 13th. The walking track will open on September 7th for indoor bookings for the people wanting to walk indoors, and that'll be the appointment as well. We will be looking at public art display sites opening in Town Hall and in the Canada Summit Center in September to get back to those programs that we had that are very successful. Community halls will also open in September. We're opening, all 3 will be open by September 1st. That's Port Sydney, Aspenden, and Utterson. We're only able to run those with 25 people capacity right now due to the non-staffing there, but it'll allow a lot of our groups to get back into the halls. And Aspen is a little smaller just because of the size of the hall, only about 17 people there. All of our plans still require Simcoe Muskoka District Health approval, and they've been very supportive with us. They've worked with us very closely throughout Ironman. It's one of the bigger events in their area of concern, so they've been very supportive with us, and we'll continue working with Simcoe District Health on all of our approvals regarding all of our programs and facilities until the COVID regulations are lifted. We'll be hosting the elections, the advance polls in the Active Living Center, September 10th to 13th, and then we will have the election date on September 20th in the Active Living Center. Port Sydney, Utterson, and Aspen community halls have all been contracted by federal election. And then we just like to remind our customers, we don't have a leisure guide this year just due to the COVID and the constant changing. So just, reminder to come pay attention to our social media and our websites for information about our programs that are coming available in the fall. CAO Corey had mentioned the accessibility, the assessment center is still running until the end of September here in the Active Living Center, and that's the current timeframe we're in the know of. And the vaccination center moved out at the end of last week. And that's pretty much a full summary of what's going on in community services. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks, Greg. Any questions, Council? Councilor Emmer.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Greg. Just a quick one. The new signs being posted on Brunel Road, they're going to identify the actual full closure. It's just saying expect delays.
Greg?
Thank you, Councilor Armour, and through you, Mayor Terziano. Correct, Councilor Armour. We're going to have two large signs put up that specifically say the road will be closed from 10:30 to 2:30, so there's no ambiguity there. It'll be straightforward. And then we're also going to place 6 additional signs at the crossroads from Riverside down through to North Mary Lake, so that there'll be just extra communication as those residents leave their homes over the next couple of days to ensure they've been contacted. And we have had all the residents' notices have been delivered to the homes now.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, your worship, to Greg. Are we done with swimming lessons in Port Sydney and Hutchison Beach, or is there still a couple more weeks left? I know I have had a lot of good reports that people were very excited that we still were able to provide that this summer.
Through you, Mayor Terziano, I believe they end next week.
Okay, thanks for that, Greg. Don't go away because there might be a question on the lookout field, but so we're at new business and we have 2 dock approval requests at the beginning, and it sounds like council was pretty much in favor of them. Steve, are you still there? I'm thinking, like, is our procedure now to bring back the resolution to actually approve the town assuming ownership and maintenance of these based on our policy, or?
Well, now it's up to council what they want to do. If they want to take over these docks, then we need some direction, and we can put it in the budget for consideration. Both of them do require some work. The Hunters Bay dock, it's a great location, but it is a very small dock, and it is now picking up on use. So if council, wanted us to, we'd look at putting in a proper sized dock with a proper landing. And the one on Lake Vernon is a well-used dock, and we can certainly look at that. It's a great dock, but the access needs some work to get down to it. And even the ownership of that dock needs to be just straightened out, because presently it's owned by the 2 people that made the presentation. And whether we take it over and they gift it to us, or whether we have to buy it, or whether we supply our own. But either way you'd like to handle it, we could bring a report back, or we could just take it right to budget for consideration.
I'm thinking maybe we should have a report back on each of them individually, just for what the process would be and what the anticipated costs would be. But I'm kind of speaking for council when it sounded like everybody was pretty much in favor of ensuring these public access points remain. If I'm speaking out of turn, by all means, wave your hand at me. Councillor Stone, did you have a question?
Yes. So the one on Hunters Bay, I think I visited that. It's beautiful. It's a gentle slope down to the water, but the dock really does need to be bigger. So if we need a motion to direct staff to make a bigger dock, I would love that.
Okay. So I'm guessing we need to do a resolution, Tanya, to direct a staff report to come back.
I have one prepared, Chair Terziano, if you'd like
you might
to put it up.
Yeah. Let's say moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It is recommended that staff be directed to add the cost of a public dock and necessary pathway connecting the dock located at 167 Hunters Bay Drive to the public road to the 2022 capital budget for council consideration. I don't know. I'm thinking we'd like to see a report back before budget, wouldn't we? Councillor Weeb?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm kind of leaning the same way. I'm not, given the strain we're already feeling with budget coming up, I don't know that we have to jump to increase the size on the stock and do much work. I'd like to recognize it and have people be able to use it, but I don't know if, it sounded like they drop canoes in and go, and there's the occasional person that goes and sits down there. I guess I'm not in a hurry to spiff up docks heading into budget season, I guess.
Deputy Mayor Alcott?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to concur with Councillor Weeb. I think the idea of bringing a report back, but it was really just to, clarify the situation, and I don't think we need to rush into adding it to the budget yet. I'd like to see a report come back.
Okay.
Councillor Schumacher?
Thank you through you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm all for the report piece. I think we want to dot our I's, cross our T's, figure out the liability piece, and figure out, what the ins and outs are. So I'm happy to have the reports come back.
Jan, did you revamp that a bit?
I did. I'll put it.
Throw it back up one more time. Recommend that staff be directed to report back on the request from Bob Vincent and Glenn Haywood on the request for a public dock located at 167 Hunter Bay Drive. All in favor? That carries. And then I'm going to assume we'd have one pretty much exactly the same for the Vernon Shores one.
Just going to take a second and change the names and the address, Mayor Terziano.
Steve?
On the Lake Vernon one, if I could just maybe expand a little bit on it in the presentation. They talk about two in their presentation. There's a couple docks out there. This site is one that staff would certainly support. And I'll just point that out to you now. It's got a town lot beside it. It's got a 66-foot road allowance down. It makes good sense at this location. And it might free up some property down the road, in all honesty. There's another dock that was put in that's not as safe as dock by no means. The public does use it, but it wouldn't make sense to staff to have two docks that close together. So, if you pass this report, we will certainly look at the whole thing. And this one might be a more expensive build, but there could be an opportunity to recoup some cash down the road if we decided we wanted to part with the lot. And we still have 3 other lots in the community as well that are undeveloped. So I just wanted to point that out. When there is 2 different groups out there with docks. This is their preferred site of the group that was presenting today, but obviously there's some neighbors down the road that would say the other site is their preferred site.
Okay. Tanya?
Ready to put it up?
Yeah. Moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It is recommended that staff be directed to report back on the request from Evan Turner and Debbie Holtby on the request for public docks located in Vernon Shores. All in favor? And that carries. Lions Lookout Field. We know the request is for about a $15,000 water supply. Greg, did you work out the cost of maintenance support for a rink up at Lions Lookout? You're on mute.
I am. I got caught with that one. Sorry. Through you, Mayor Terziano. It's about 3.5 hours labor to do one flood to bring just the timing to get up there and back. So I haven't got all the numbers from Olympia yet. They haven't been able to get back to us. So I don't have all the details, but it's about 3.5 hours labor to do one trip. So, without having all those full details, you'd be looking at a little over $100 in labor, about $120 in labor. And then the costs on the other side, we haven't got those yet, but wouldn't be too big.
That's per day though, I take it.
Yeah, per flood.
And that doesn't include snow removal.
No, that's assuming that the snow removal has been done before we get there.
So that's $120 a day, maybe for 100 days.
It's a really challenging one, Mayor Terziano, because depending on the weather and whatnot, it really does adjust. And how often we do it. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do it 7 days a week. It's not possible. We can't do it on weekends. And with our current staffing levels, something else would fall off if we tried to do it with our current machine. So it's possible, but they're busy in the indoor arena, so it might be tough to set up.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. I think for the snow removal part, I like the idea of just leaving some shovels up there and letting the users actually clean the snow off. And maybe it should only have to be flooded maybe once or twice a week or just before a weekend. And if there's a water supply up there, would you have to take the Zamboni up all the time, or could you just not spray it and close it down when it throws up? And just a bunch of thoughts out there, that's all.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. Having a little bit of experience in way too many cold nights in Port Sydney on the ring. We typically have to clean every time before we flood, but snow removal events are pretty, or they were pretty minimal this year. I can't speak what's going to happen winter coming, but typically if they were taking an ice resurfacer up there, there would be no snow removal required other than major events. So it ends up being, we flood probably every third or fourth day. So it can be cut it back a bit, I think. And I think it's well worth it, even if the costs come in. Well, let's try it for a year and see what happens. But I think it's something that we should seriously consider.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I like the idea of leaving shovels up there. It's great. But if we are going up the flood, you know, you can't hope somebody shoveled it. So I think we do have to build in some snow removal time whenever we flood. And as you say, maybe we don't flood every day. But I guess we need to consider that it is going to be some added maintenance and costs to our budget to give this a try. Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I would definitely try for a Friday flood and a Monday flood and see how it goes. The other question I had was, is there any chance of, rather than running water right away, is there any chance of contracting out a water truck? Is that kind of far-fetched? Because I think once we dig and trench for, you know, whatever, 20,000 to get water up there, if I'm not mistaken, we're kind of committed, which, I mean, it's its own thing, but I'm just wondering if bringing in water is not feasible, or it's been contemplated.
Steve?
There again, I'll defer to, you know, Councillor Fitzgerald that does a lot of flooding of rinks, and he'll tell you how much water it's going to take. I know years ago with the fire department with Councillor Armour and how much water was put on by trucks, and they certainly were not Olympic size skating pads that they're talking 20,000. I think you're going to need a water source up there, but I'm not an expert on arenas by no means. But I think more so to get the base going and to get it, you know, level, because there's a natural crown in that field that we're going to have to work with to get it, or somebody's going to have to work with to get that to a flat surface which can be maintained. The big unknown, and we've been working on it from a staff perspective, and it's been all over the place. I'll be honest with you. Earlier this week, when I was meeting with Paul Evans, it was all going to be volunteer component. There was no staff requirement. Last night he gave me a call and said, no, they've changed their mind that they want staff to maintain it. So we did start to work on some numbers. We had some ballpark numbers. We figured we were probably talking a 16-week season, and we were estimating 40 hours a week to maintain a large surface like that of any regularity, with including cleaning it and flooding it. That carried a cost of about $23,000. We had $15,000 in on a water system. That's the budget numbers we've been given right now to get the water to where it needs to be. And we included $5,000 on miscellaneous brushes for the machines, some fuel that's going to be used, you know, whatever else it might be. So we came up with a real quick budget number of $43,000. Open for any discussion or dispute on that. I've never built an ice rink this size. I don't know if 40 hours a week is the right amount of time. And if it gets the use that it could get, I think you could be into a Friday, Saturday, Sunday flood type thing. I know when Can Lake was done years ago by park staff, they spent the winter over there looking after that. Since that time, we've obviously pulled them off that duty and we put them on the sidewalk duty. So trying to say that we'll do it with existing staff, I think is going to be next to impossible to keep it with any irregularity. We are looking at using existing equipment if we're involved in it. But there again, Can Lake, you know, the Rotary Club said they're looking after themselves. I guess it's a real question. What do you want to do on Lions Lookout? And if you want to give it a true try and see what happens this year, I'm going to suggest you could be looking at up to $43,000, which includes $15,000 allowance to get the water there.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. Let's just remember that one figure of the water is going to be there forever once we do it. So that cost is going to disappear over use, and I see great things for use there if we in fact do have water and later power there. It's just a great space, and I see it being an income generator for the town, actually, as well as providing free things for constituents and visitors. So again, you don't know how much time is going to be required due to snow, but I do know that we have often 2 or 3 people go and flood the rink in Port Sydney, but we're hauling a pump down to the lake and drilling a hole in the lake. Whereas a lot of times it won't be required if we're having an ice surfacer go up there. There'll be minimal snow. And I think outdoors people don't have the expectation of, and nor can you even achieve it, of indoor ice quality. So I can't imagine that if we have a tractor available with a blower on it, Director Vernon?
There is a small unit which is kept at the arena, which we could share.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, it takes an hour to blow it off and an hour for us to flood it. Sometimes there's 2 of us, sometimes there's 3 of us. But having water and having an ice surfacer there in order to blow the snow off an Olympic size ice with a tractor, I think would be an hour, and would you have to do it 2 or 3 times a week. So I understand your numbers are correlated with what you expect or may happen, but it may be a lot less, I think. So that's it. I'm supporting this.
Councillor Weed.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I take those comments well. I think that this is going to be a good investment. I think not just when it comes to an ice surface, but what you can do in the area surrounding the ice surface. We found last year where a lot of people wanted to get out and fat bike, or they wanted to snowshoe, or whatever you wanted to do. You can set up more. It'll draw in more usage surrounding the area. So I do think that it's going to be a good investment. And Councillor Fitzgerald's right. Once we sink that cost, I think it's probably money well spent, and we'll have it there forever. So I'm in support. I think it's worth a go. I think it could be really terrific.
So might I suggest a resolution that reads something like, staff go ahead and get the water source up there this year. I mean, they have to get on it right now if they're going to get it done this year at a cost of $15,000, and that $20,000 be added to the budget for 2022 for maintenance. Will somehow, if the rink's ready to be maintained in December, we'll somehow figure out how to do it within our existing budget, but we'll budget something like $20,000 for 2022. Is that, I don't know, do you want to cut my head off, Steve, with a resolution like that? Or the other piece is Tanya's drawing up something like that. Do we want our staff to look into any insurance requirements or anything for allowing volunteers to open up a rink on Can Lake? CAO Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do believe we had prepared a draft motion directing staff to bring a report back just to outline costing and any other factors that needed to be considered. So committee is sitting as general committee today. So the resolution won't be ratified until the council meeting in September. So if committee wants more information with respect to operational costs, we could have staff bring a report directly to council in September, which would have all that information. So the direction could still proceed. But I'll leave it up for committee. I just wasn't sure how much information you wanted, because we've generally put some numbers together. I'm not so sure how comfortable Steve is with those numbers, or or Greg. If they're comfortable, then perhaps the committee can proceed, but I'd like to make sure staff are comfortable with those numbers being proposed. Thank you.
I thought maybe you're going to weigh in on the insurance piece. No.
Well, sorry,
Councillor Fitzgerald.
sorry, that would be part of the report. We would factor all of that in, the insurance requirements, the cost to operate, how it's a temporary operation, so we wouldn't have to worry about capital at this point. But again, it's committee's discretion. I just felt it was important to note that.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just want to be sure that we break these into the appropriate requests to ensure Lions Lookout for public skating versus Can Lake, I don't think is apples and apples. So I would hate to see a potentially good thing happening at Lions Lookout be negated by a negative impact of insurance on the Can Lake issue. And surely we can have volunteers do the Can Lake thing, just similar to the arrangement we have in Port Sydney. I'm wondering if Greg Peeling might want to weigh in on this and on some of our MOUs regarding the parking lot at Port Sydney Beach, for instance. So.
Through you, Mayor Terziano, I think the biggest thing here is that, you know, for the ice reserve for the Olympia, it puts it at a risk. It's never been used for flooding at Can Lake. It was only ever used for scraping. So you don't put the water in the actual machine. It's just a scrape and remove to try and flatten it out, and then you've still got to flood it with a hose. Is really probably the best way to do it. We just don't have the like, it's not that I'm trying to be negative about it, but it's just the team is busy here with the indoor arena. So they just, to pull somebody out of the operations is challenging without having a new person added in away. And it does put it is a backup machine for this arena, for the Canada Summit Center. So it's nice to have the backup just in case that we don't have to have any service interruption. Just some points just to make, but we can bring back the rest in a report for sure.
But listen, I thought we were going to have these answers for this meeting today. We knew this was coming, and I thought we're going to have some. Obviously, we don't have enough definite answers. So let's do a resolution to bring a report back directly to council, answering all the questions, all the costs. Tanya, if you can throw that up. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Weed. It is recommended that staff be directed to report back to council on the request from the Huntsville Lake Bay's Chamber of Commerce for a sports court rink, specifically temporary outdoor rink and water supply at Huntsville Lions Lookout Field, Can Lake rink to be facilitated and maintained by community citizens. Okay, I take it with all the discussion, you know all the parameters that go within that resolution. I don't think that said back to council though, did it? Okay, sorry. All in favor? That carries. Okay, our last agenda item, bylaw enforcement, staffing levels, discussion. Councillor Weed, I believe you brought this forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just quickly wanted to put it on the table for everyone to discuss if we feel that an enhancement to our bylaw operation is warranted. I've been receiving, and I'm sure you've all been receiving, more calls regarding things that need more enforcement, need more patrols, things like short-term rentals. I know the fireworks debate has been up and running, people setting them off at weird times, etc. So I guess, you know, I think our bylaw department is fantastic, but I also think that I'm sure they could probably use a little bit more support. So I just wanted to put that on the floor as the discussion point, that perhaps going into the next budget cycle, we might want to look at if we're comfortable with the levels of enforcement that we have, if we have enough boots on the ground, and any feedback from committee, I think is worth taking on now, and so that way we're prepared going into the season.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Jonathan, for starting us off. As council knows, I myself was awoken 2 Mondays ago at 1:41 a.m. by fireworks, and I've had numerous calls about this issue, and I've heard anecdotally that people that are doing it, their comments are, well, nobody's going to stop me. So I wholeheartedly agree that we should address this in the next budget. I think we need to beef this up, because it's almost a running joke for a lot of stuff going on in this town, that we just don't have, as Jonathan said, boots on the ground. I want to add that the bylaw officers we have now are doing a fantastic job. This is no way slighting what they're trying to do with the limited resources and time that they can do it. But I think this is kind of getting out of hand. As town is growing, we need people to know that there are bylaws that need to be adhered to, and if it means we get more people and maybe some round the clock coverage and on weekends or whatever we need to do, we got to get the resources together to do that. That's my comment. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Alcoa.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to endorse what was previously said by both Councillor Wiebe and Withey. I too have received complaints, and again, no disrespect to our existing bylaw staff, but I just don't think that they have enough hours in the day to address the onslaught of comments that we're hearing with respect to, again, fireworks. I've heard those directly, as well as short-term rentals, and, you know, 2 areas that are growing. And so I absolutely support the recommendation. We look into it.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, and just again to concur. I'm glad that Councillor Wiebe brought it up. I've been attending a few Lake Association AGMs in the area, and that is one of the things that have been brought up, is the short-term rental pieces and or fireworks, people even setting them off in the middle of a fire ban, you know, those kinds of things that are happening within the area. So.
Yeah, I think we're all hearing the complaints. I'm pretty sure you're not hearing any more than I am, especially about short-term rentals. But one of the things about the short-term rental program is it's not supposed to cost the municipality money. So if there's bylaw enforcement that needs to be done, it needs to be done within the short-term rental permitting fees and taxes. And we do need to get that program running in an efficient manner. Councillor Wiebe.
Yeah, no, thank you, Your Worship. You kind of read my mind there. I think that if we can really relook at what resources can be allocated how, it may not affect the bottom line for the tax base, which is something I'd be very much in favor of. You know, I think the amount of time that's a lot of the short-term rentals, the amount of time that they're swallowing up from our bylaw is really causing difficulties to get out and be seen in all those other areas. So as we said, yes, the municipality is growing, but the short-term rental market is growing, and it's going to grow bigger, I think, than we are anticipating when things really open up. And next year, when things are really flying and our main street is you know, back into full steam and people are parking illegally everywhere, I'll tell you, we're going to need, I think, some more resources. So if we can figure out the best way possible to not take away budget-wise and really put the resources where they belong, I think we'll be better serving all the residents. So I look forward to that. So thank you for that.
Okay. I think everybody is on the line, Director Maxwell and the CAO. So They've heard the comments. That's it, council. I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Weeb. It's recommended that we do now adjourn at 12:06 p.m. All in favor? And that carries. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your